American Comics, opening sign in Accelerator. Chapter 201. Young Natasha Romanoff. Levi's silently observed Natasha Romanoff as a child and found out Natasha Romanoff was very assertive as a child, and actually had rare blue hair. As a child, Natasha Romanoff looked like a little boy, but she was also very cute. Levi's uses molecular manipulation to create a camera on the fly, then snaps at little Natasha Romanoff. I really want to know how Natasha Romanoff feels when she sees these photos when she goes back. Who's where? Perhaps the sound of the camera was too loud, and I didn't expect to be discovered. That I'm just a photographer passing by. I can't help but document him when I see beautiful things. Seeing that he could no longer hide, he could only walk out of 580s. When little Natasha Romanoff saw him, his eyes widened without blinking. The strange man in front of him was so handsome. After a little, Natasha Romanoff is an agent. He has experienced various trainings, but he can't help but take a few more glances. This is my first meeting with Natasha Romanoff. It has to be recorded. Thinking of this, Levi's took out the camera and took a few pictures again. What are you doing? Hurry up and give me the picture. Little Natasha Romanoff did not expect the man in front of her to take so many photos of her. As an agent, being photographed is very dangerous. So little Natasha Romanoff went directly to ask for it. This is not good. If you want a photo, I will give you a copy after I wash it out. 35. Seeing little Natasha Romanoff reaching for the camera, Levi's directly lifted the camera so that she couldn't catch it. Don't think I can't help it. Little Natasha Romanoff was a little angry, and saw that she actually fell on him directly, and then his body jumped up in a flash to catch the camera, and then a backflip fell beautifully to the ground. Pretty. Levi's couldn't help but applaud. Little Natasha Romanoff smiled smugly. But the film is with me. Seeing her smug look, Levi's immediately took out a black film and laughed. Little Natasha Romanoff suddenly collapsed when she saw the slightly smug smile just now. Give it to me. Natasha Romanoff Jr. tried to wrap his body around to grab the film, but this time it wasn't so easy. Levi Stone hid in hiding, and the two seemed to be playing hide and seek in the backyard. Little Natasha Romanoff seemed to be having a good time, too, giggling like a silver bell. Okay, your parents are coming back, so I'll give you this film. 55. Aware that little Natasha Romanoff's parents are coming back, Levi's has no intention of continuing to play with her. After all, her parents are agents, but they are not as friendly as Levi's, a stranger. You are acquainted. 35. Little Natasha Romanoff snorted as she took the film. Hey, who are you? Me? A passenger from the future. Levi's smiled and added, little Natasha Romanoff, my name is Levi's, remember my name. Levi's. Natasha Romanoff frowned when she heard the name, and it puzzled her to find out that this strange stranger knew her name. But when she came back to her senses, the stranger in front of her had disappeared. Not far from Natasha Romanoff, Levi's couldn't help showing a faint smile when he saw the scroll in his hand. Natasha Romanoff was very interesting when he was a child. But from here, Natasha Romanoff's toughest time begins. As predicted. Next, the identity of Natasha Romanoff's family of spies was discovered, and then the family escaped in a thrilling way, and finally returned to Mulian. But coming back here doesn't mean they can live happily ever after. People who know Natasha Romanoff in the Red House organization must know some. This is a very cruel place. They train agents for the purpose. Enough girls will be selected for inhumane training. Rouse Natasha Romanoff many years later, recalling the past with a shuddering feeling, which shows the horror of the Red House. Levi's wonders if little Natasha Romanoff needs to go through all the pain, but soon gives up the idea of helping Natasha Romanoff escape the Red House. Maybe Natasha Romanoff wouldn't be the Natasha Romanoff of the future without the training of the Red House. But not being able to take Natasha Romanoff away doesn't mean that she can't be helped. Looking at Natasha Romanoff, who was crying secretly in the bed after the first day of brutal training, Levi's comforted with some distress. Natasha Romanoff, cheer up, you can definitely do it. 35. Hearing the sudden voice in his ear, little Natasha Romanoff was obviously stunned. She looked around, but only saw other girls in the room, no men at all. But where did this voice come from? Don't look for it. You can't find mine, have you forgotten? My name is Levi's. It's you? Where are you? Little Natasha Romanoff also remembered the very handsome 4.1 stranger he met before. I'm far away, and now I'm just using telepathy to talk to you, and I can hear you even if you don't make a sound. Are you here to take me? Asked little Natasha Romanoff hopefully. Sorry, I didn't come to take you away. Hearing this answer, Natasha Romanoff was suddenly disappointed. But I can heal your wounds. Levi's voice sounded again. And then Natasha Romanoff felt that the pain from today's training had suddenly recovered. The recovery from the injury made Natasha Romanoff a little excited and a little curious, wondering how he did it. Chapter 202. Natasha Romanoff's graduation ceremony. Vice, you have such a magical ability, can't you really take me away? I will be very obedient. Natasha Romanoff still wants to escape this horrible place. This is something you have to experience, so I have no choice. Levi's said helplessly. Natasha Romanoff was a little angry when he heard the words, thinking that he was lying to himself, so he stopped talking. But after waiting for a while, he said, Are you still there? However, no one was answering her question this time, which made her feel a little lonely. For the next few days, Natasha Romanoff was going through the devil's training during the day, and what she was most looking forward to after the training was Levi's voice. And Levi's will give Natasha Romanoff encouragement every night. After half a year, the most important thing for Natasha Romanoff is coming. In order to completely control these girls, the Red House organized to remove the girls' wombs. As a woman, having the uterus removed is the equivalent of turning a man into a eunuch. Natasha Romanoff has been haunted by this incident. Levi's definitely couldn't let this happen, and that night, he directly used the power of the mind to change the people who had the operation, so that they thought Natasha Romanoff had done the operation. After everyone's operation was over, Natasha Romanoff realized that she didn't need to be operated on. What the hell is going on? Doubtful, she immediately thought of Levi's. That night, Natasha Romanoff kept calling out to him in his mind, and his voice sounded in Natasha Romanoff's ear. Good night, Miss Natasha Romanoff. It's your hands and feet, right? Everyone has had surgery, only I haven't. Natasha Romanoff asked in her heart. Although she is still young, she also understands the significance of this operation to her. Once this operation is performed, there will be no hope in her life. Just so you don't have any regrets. Thank you, Natasha Romanoff said gratefully. I'm ready to leave. Leave? Natasha Romanoff exclaimed when she heard this. Fortunately, everyone on the surrounding beds fell asleep because of the surgery, so she didn't hear her voice. You said you were leaving? Why? Natasha Romanoff said excitedly, covering her mouth. The reason? Levi stoned for a moment, wondering if he should tell Natasha Romanoff the truth, but it seems that the future Natasha Romanoff knew that he came from across. Thinking of this, he decided to tell Natasha Romanoff the truth. Natasha Romanoff, would you believe me if I said I came from the future, specifically to change your life? This. Hearing this, Natasha Romanoff only felt that his head was not enough. What came from the future was simply beyond her comprehension. Simply put, it's like a fairy tale. Forget it, I knew you didn't believe it. But I'm leaving now, and the rest of the time is up to you. Wait tilde. As soon as Levi's finished speaking, Natasha Romanoff called out anxiously. I believe in you, so when will we meet again? Levi's thought for a while and said, we'll meet again after you finish your graduation ceremony. I'll wait for you, Natasha Romanoff said hastily. However, after a long while, she did not see Levi's answering her words, which made her feel a little disappointed. This night was the second time she cried since she came to the Red House, and she also decided in her heart that this must be the last time she cried. Years passed in a blink of an eye. Natasha Romanoff, who was young at the time, has now become a beautiful stunner, but if anyone dares to underestimate her, they will definitely pay the price of their lives. And on this day, their graduation ceremony finally began. A transport plane took dozens of girls in black combat uniforms to the Arctic wasteland. It is covered with snow and ice all year round, and there are no people around for dozens of kilometers, and the food is extremely scarce here. But the girls who were given the title of Black Widow had to return to the Red House within 2 weeks under such a harsh environment, and the food given to them is only for one person. In other words, if you want to go back alive, you must get food. People without food can only wait to die in this wasteland. 580. After learning about the rule, Natasha Romanoff couldn't help sneering. She was ready to deal with everything. When she got here, she trembled slightly involuntarily. This was not because she was afraid, but because she thought of seeing the person who made her think about it day and night. She couldn't help being excited. Over the years, she remembered what Levi said, and when she finished her graduation, that was when they would meet. Why, are you afraid? Many people around her couldn't help sneering when they saw her trembling all over. No, it's just too excited. Natasha Romanoff didn't explain much, because from this moment on, they were enemies of life and death. In this glacial wasteland, only one person is allowed to go out. As the Red House's transport plane left, the battle officially began. Natasha Romanoff was quick and was the first to grab most of the food the Red House had left behind. Then she didn't want to fight, and ran away with food. Most of the people behind them were still snatching the food left on the spot, and only a few people caught up. Chapter 203 Promotion to LV6. Level Godfather. As the leader of the Black Widows, Natasha Romanoff is the strongest among them, and the other Black Widows behind him can't catch up for a while. And as long as she can keep ahead, it is impossible for people who have no food behind her to catch up with her. And Natasha Romanoff had most of the food, enough to last till the end. Her idea was right, but the Black Widows who had no food behind them were like hungry wolves, chasing after her. Just as Natasha Romanoff was getting ready to rest, the other Black Widows gathered round. Natasha Romanoff saw this and had to fight to the death. At the same time, from an iceberg not far away, Levi's watched. But he didn't choose to help, something Natasha Romanoff had to go through. Soon Natasha Romanoff took out the other Black Widows, and then dragged the injured body onwards. No one could catch up to her this time. It was not until a week later that Natasha Romanoff finally walked out of the glacial wasteland. When she got here, she could say that she had succeeded. and then she only needed to go back to the Red House. However, Natasha Romanoff was not ready to go back. It stands to reason that after the graduation ceremony, the person she was thinking of should also appear. It was at this time. Natasha Romanoff, long time no see. Levi's figure suddenly appeared beside her. Really you? Natasha Romanoff shivered involuntarily with excitement, and then rushed over. Levi's hugged Natasha Romanoff, who had grown up, and stroked her hair lightly. Natasha Romanoff worked hard. You don't have to stay in the Red House from now on tilde 0. Really? Natasha Romanoff looked up at him in disbelief. Definitely. Remember what I once said? I'm from the future, so I can't interfere too much in your life, otherwise there will be huge amounts of changes in the future. What if I can't meet you? Manage? This concern of Levi's is very necessary. After all, if it interferes too much with Natasha Romanoff's past, it will be bad in case of an accident. After all, things like changing history are prone to the butterfly effect. Yeah, I understand. Natasha Romanoff nodded and added, but I want to eliminate the Red House organization. Levi said with a smile, this is exactly what you will do later, so I will also support you. Natasha Romanoff would try her best to eliminate the Red House after she left the Red House, and she finally did it. But the Red House she destroyed was nothing more than an insignificant stronghold behind it. A real Red House is far from simple. However, Levi's did not deliberately change anything. After helping Natasha Romanoff eliminate a base of the Red House, the two became a happy couple incognito. Another half a year has passed, and Levi's travels around the world every day to check in. Today, he only needs to sign in successfully once, then he can be promoted to LV6, which is the 6th level mutant. How powerful are the 6th level mutants? According to his estimation, he is already a police officer of the same level as Ancient One or Odin, that is, level Godfather. Definitely, this is just his guess. How strong will he know only after he truly becomes a level 6 mutant? Looking at Howard Stark, Levi is not far away. He directly signed in. Ding. Did the host sign into Howard Stark? Double experience or super ability? Sign in for double the experience. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for gaining 200 experience points. Ding. Congratulations to the host for successfully upgrading the level. The current level is LV6. After being upgraded to LV6, Levi's body was instantly decomposed into an atomic state. This state is very wonderful, making him feel that he has merged with this world. He can easily change the whole world, which is the power of molecular manipulation. At the same time, several passive abilities such as evolution and dragon transformation have also made his body undergo earth-shaking changes. Now his body can't be drowned by water or burned by fire, completely immune to severe poison, and can survive even in a vacuum environment without air. It can be said that his current body has become a perfect work of art. This also gave him a completely different temperament. Even Natasha Romanoff felt like he wanted to kneel when he saw him. It can be said that at the moment Levi's is more and more like a Mephisto. After being upgraded to LV6, the change in his strength was unimaginable. He originally thought that the strength of a mutant would allow him to reach level God further at most. That is the level of Odin and Ancient One. But he was wrong. After upgrading to LV6, his current strength can be said to crush Ancient One and Odin. Because every Leakian's super ability has undergone a qualitative change. After being upgraded to LV6, it is like molecular manipulation. If it was before, there would be things that he could not do by using molecular manipulation, such as the human soul, which could not be created by molecular manipulation. But now he finds himself able to use molecular manipulation to create souls. This is completely indistinguishable from God. It can be said that at the moment, he has become a god who thinks he is omniscient and almighty. Sensing the change in himself, Levi's let out a sigh of relief. It is not his pursuit to become the kind of god who has no desires and no desires. He just wants a place in this Marvel universe. Take a look at your system panel. Celery. Chapter 204. The Temptation of Natasha Romanoff. Host, Levi's. Super ability, vector operation, frozen control, flame control, energy absorption, electromagnetic force, evolution, super energy, infrasound, atomic collapse, stealth, molecular manipulation, dragon incarnation, super brain, weather control, vibration, final elemental matter, traversal, mechanical heart, ionization, illusion, perspective, psychic cannonball, super speed regeneration, super speed, affinity, flexible, adaptability, duplication, phoenix force, hellfire, Audiobook, marksman, weapon strength, Thor's power, armor incarnation, petrification, gigantic, potential catalyst, space power, mind power, prophecy. Super ability level, LV.6, level 5 mutants. Experience value, 0.1 million. After upgrading to LV6, the XP required for the next upgrade also becomes 1 million. In other words, if you want to upgrade the 580 to LV7, it will take at least 30 years. It looks like a long time, but it's okay to go to a parallel world for 30 years and then come back. Definitely, the premise is that there must be so many sign-in targets. Natasha Romanoff, let's go back. Levi smiled while looking at Natasha Romanoff, who was worried. Saying that, he put his arms around Natasha Romanoff's waist, and then returned to their cabin. There is no never-ending feast. After living with Natasha Romanoff for half a year, Levi's is ready to go back. The one who came here this time has completed 2 goals. One is to change Natasha Romanoff's life, and the other is to successfully improve LV6. Now that the 2 goals have been completed, he is also ready to leave. Do you really want to go back? Can you not? So, go. Natasha Romanoff was lying on top of him in sexy silk pajamas, wrapping her arms around him tightly. Wow, is that Levi's can't stand it. Then, just stay for a month. With that he turned around and threw Natasha Romanoff down Skull Island. After a month with Natasha Romanoff, Levi's finally sneaked back. The fragments of the phoenix left in Natasha Romanoff's body can ensure that Natasha Romanoff will not grow old with age. However, the next 50 years or so have been quite difficult. Fortunately, Levi's has planned for her what to do in the next 50 years, so she will not be bored waiting. Heartilda. After stretching and raw with King Kong, Levi's returned to the Mutant Academy. Unexpectedly, Natasha Romanoff was already waiting for him as soon as he came back. Where are Natasha Romanoff and the others? Seeing only Natasha Romanoff alone, he's a little weird. They're still learning magic. Natasha Romanoff smiled and added, want to walk together? Definitely. Levi's nodded happily. You've already gone back. Natasha Romanoff's first sentence made him stunned for a moment. How did Natasha Romanoff know that he had gone back to the past? You guessed it right, but how do you know? Natasha Romanoff smiled softly. Maybe it's a feeling. Hearing this, Levi's shrugged helplessly. A woman's 6th sense has always been the most mysterious ability. By the way, I'll show you something good. With that said, he took out a photo of Natasha Romanoff when he was a child. It's a picture of me when I was a kid. Natasha Romanoff was a little surprised. Didn't you already give me these pictures? In her memory, Levi's had clearly given her the film. Because the one I gave you is fake. Levi's smiled. When Natasha Romanoff heard the words, she remembered that after she got the film, she didn't seem to wash it out, but was delayed by the police. Natasha Romanoff, tell me what happened next. The two came to sit down in the woods next to the school playground, and Levi's was very curious about what happened next. Natasha Romanoff carefully recalled what happened after he left, and then said slowly, half a year passed in a blink of an eye. As New York became the first city of mutants, reactions were varied around the world. Some countries have made it clear that they want to join the mutant city, while some countries are still very resistant to mutants. Levi's is not in a hurry. Although the production of X-Gene Awakening Potion has been increased, it will take a lot of time for the world to open the era of mutants. Don't be in a hurry, just take it slow. However, with the increase in the number of mutants in New York City, the use of ability crimes is not uncommon. This kind of thing cannot be avoided. Fortunately, Levi's was ready to let the X-Men and the members of the Brotherhood have merged to form a law enforcement team. Strictly speaking, at the moment New York has become a theocratic city where all the mutants believe in God, which is Levi's. The following is the law enforcement team instead of law enforcement, running the entire New York City. Chapter 205 X-Power User Academy, Spider-Man Registration. The next day, when the first ray of sunshine in the morning fell on his face, Levi's yawned lazily and finally opened his eyes. It has been more than half a year since the New York War, and he has done almost everything he should do, and the rest is left to the X-Men to handle, and he just needs to be a god. This also caused him to have nothing to do every day, so Little Naughty and Katie came up with a solution. Master, it's time to get up. In a daze, Levi's, who closed his eyes and was about to fall asleep, suddenly heard a soft voice in his ear. He suddenly opened his eyes, only to see Little Naughty and Katie wearing JK uniforms. Is it JK today? This is pretty good. Levi's looked at the two in front of him, his eyes lit up, and then he pulled them over with one hand. Was going to do some morning exercise for body and mind, but was stopped by two girls. Vice, you forgot that today is the day when the academy starts, so we are going to school. Katie said helplessly. I still have to go to school? Levi's is confused. How old is he? And he's a god of mutants. And now you're telling me to go to school. Am I mistaken? Although he was only 20 years old, it was time for school. Let's go. It's better than staying at home every day. Maybe there are particularly beautiful beauties in the academy. The Little Naughty pulled him up. Well, Levi's admits that the latter sentence gave him some anticipation. After a hard wake, Katie drove out of her new car, and the three left the Mutant Academy together. By going to school, definitely not referring to the original Mutant Academy. After New York City became a mutant city, Professor X began to build a new Mutant Academy, or remodel the original academy into a Mutant Academy. And Katie and Naughty took him to the largest Mutant Academy in New York City. Because today is the day for the start of school registration, thousands of parents gathered here with their children crowded at the gate of the college early in the morning. Generally speaking, the controllability of adults is relatively strong, and there are also special adult colleges to learn. In general, it only takes a month to easily control it. So now all parents spend their energy on their children, and it is their wish to let their children go to the best mutant academy. As long as you are strong enough, you can join the XMan, which is the dream of all mutants in New York. But it seems to be because the X-Gene Awakening Potion is a compulsory awakening potion, according to the statistics of Miss Misaka. So far, nearly 6 million people throughout New York. However, among these 6 million people, even the 4th-level mutants are relatively few, and currently there are only less than 100 people. Although this number is not small, it is nothing compared to this population base. And the 5th-level mutant has never appeared. This made Levi's doubt for a time whether this mandatory X-Gene Awakening agent could not awaken the 5th-level mutants at all. Definitely, it's only been more than half a year since the New York War. Perhaps the potential for level 5 mutants hasn't grown up yet. X-Power User Academy. Oh this name is not bad. Levi's couldn't help but be a little surprised when he saw the name of the Mutant Academy. Isn't this your own name? Katie complained. When? Levi's looked bewildered, not knowing when he named the academy. The little naughty and Katie on the side immediately rolled their eyes when they heard the words, looking like they were defeated by you. Seeking flowers. Last time you said that the name Mutant is not good, it should be called Power User, so now the names of all academies have been changed to Power User. And now the mutants are also self-proclaimed as superpowers. That's right, and Miss Misaka also took out some levels from LV1 to LV5. In short, the current academy has changed a lot from the past. After listening to the words of the two, Levi's nodded. It seems that Ms. Misaka is very careful about the establishment of the school. He even took out the academy city set. Ad 0. It took a long time to squeeze in from the crowd, and Levi's finally breathed a sigh of relief. At this time, the admissions office on the side caught his attention. Sorry, you were not admitted. A short-headed man in the admissions office shook his head regretfully. Why? My child is very smart, and his previous grades were among the best in the school. An old lady in the admissions office led a child to explain something anxiously. Mom, please calm down. After the test, your ability is still not awakened, or the ability is too weak, which does not meet the admission requirements of our school. The inch-headed man said helplessly. But my Parker is very powerful. When the aliens killed my husband, Parker saved me. He is very strong, fast, and can climb walls. Although the aunt explained repeatedly, after testing Parker, he really couldn't use any ability. Feel sorry. Wait, the kid's name is Parker, 35. The name Parker caught Levi's idea, and he looked at the little boy again. Isn't this the future Spider-Man? Mountain. Chapter 206 Spider-Man Admission, Mission Hall. Aunt May looked at Levi's in surprise and replied, yes, he is my nephew called Peter Parker. What a future Spider-Man. Levi's thought it was interesting, but he didn't expect to meet Spider-Man by chance. Hello. Peter Parker shyly called Raw. Peter Parker is the future Spider-Man. He is definitely a potential power user, but his awakening in the original book originated from the genetic erosion of a spider. Let him have the ability like a spider. Arguably it was a coincidence, but it was this coincidence that made Spider-Man. If it weren't for this coincidence, Spider-Man's 580 awakening would not have been smooth. And now he has obviously not been bitten by a spider. Although it seems that he also has the X gene in his body, the process of awakening the strong is not smooth. Definitely, this does not affect Levi's optimism about him. After all, he can withstand the erosion of foreign genes and awaken his super ability. The potential of this awakened person is very great. Very well, Peter Parker, you've been accepted. Levi's tapped the future Spider-Man on the shoulder. May I ask who you are? The short-headed man from the admissions office frowned and looked at Levi's. He felt that the person in front of him was familiar, but he couldn't remember it. Then another woman next to him suddenly opened her eyes. SHH, be quiet. Seeing that she was recognized, Levi's hurriedly stopped her. Although not many people know his identity as God, he is also the leader of the X-Men. He didn't want to be recognized and cause a riot. At this time, the short-headed man also remembered that Levi's name and avatar were among the founders of the school. As the leader of the X-Men, he still pays more attention, but fewer people have seen him. Do as Vice says, Katie said at this time. Huh? You're the vice chairman of the student council, Shadowcat Katie. Only then did the short-headed man discover Katie and Little Naughty, who are also very famous in the school. You look familiar. Katie felt like she'd seen the Inchman along the way. My name is Jonard. It's normal for you not to remember me. After all, I'm just a clerk in charge of admissions. Jonard smiled awkwardly. Leave the admissions office. Levi's asked suddenly, when did you become the student vice president, Katie? And what about the student president? Katie rolled her eyes when she heard the words. I was already elected as the vice president of the student union when this school started, but you don't know, the chairman's word is sky. Oh, Levi's nodded, rubbing his chin. But I don't remember having a student council before. Katie and Little Naughty looked helpless when they heard the words. They were very busy during this time. The reason for the busyness is precisely because of the lack of manpower. After all, the whole of New York is really too big, and the original X-Men people couldn't manage it at all, and even they were assigned very important tasks. One of these tasks is to manage the student union. This is not because there are too few people, there are not many teachers in the school, and sometimes they need to perform tasks. It is impossible to stay in the school all day like a normal school. And when there are more people in the school, it is easy to have problems. After all, the students are all super ability people now, and some small frictions will be solved with ability. That's why there is a student union, allowing students to manage students. Hearing this explanation, Levi's understood. It seems that there are still a lot of problems in New York City, but this is also what he expected. After all, the city is now out of the jurisdiction of the ugly country, and it is not so easy to establish a new power mechanism. The power mechanism of the student union is better. Selecting some outstanding students as the administrators of the college not only shares the pressure of teachers, but also allows them to have more resources for these students. You can even join the XMan directly after graduation. It's an idea that kills multiple birds with one stone. And if this idea is not unexpected, it should also be given by Miss Misaka. Okay, since you've come to school, Vice, it's time to share the pressure of the student union. I've specially prepared today's itinerary for you. 5. The little naughty said and took out a small notebook. The first is to give a speech for the opening of the school. After all, you are the leader of the XMan. You must let the freshmen get to know you. The second is to attend the meeting of the student union and give some advice and guidance. The third. 5. When she said this, Katie couldn't help but patted her on the shoulder and interrupted her. What about the vice people? Run, Katie said helplessly. On the other hand, Levi strolled around the school leisurely. He didn't come here today to go to school. He is a 4.1 person who surpasses level Godfather. He still uses it to go to school. What a joke. While wandering, he suddenly found a special building. Quest lobby? How does it feel like an RPG game? Levi's walked in strangely. When he came to the mission hall, he finally understood what was here. As I said before, there are too many mutants in New York City today, which leads to a lot of people who use ability to commit crimes. And the X-Men just couldn't keep up. Even though the students in the student union shared some pressure, they were still in a state of shortage of manpower. So this will have the appearance of the task hall. Chapter 207 S-Class Mission released by Polaris. The tasks in the task hall are divided into D level to S level, and if you want to receive the task, you also need to register the power user level. Only the corresponding level can access the corresponding task. This is done in order to minimize the danger of students' lack of strength. Classmate, do you want to take the mission? The receptionist in the mission hall was still casually dozing off, apparently because she hadn't slept well last night. However, after seeing Levi's, she suddenly woke up. Oh, I'll take a look. You can continue to sleep. Levi's waved his hand indifferently, and then continued to check the tasks on the bulletin board. Each of these bounty tasks has a valuable bounty, and even the lowest level D-level task has a bounty ranging from several thousand to 10,000. Under the temptation of 22, students with ability will definitely take the task to earn some extra money. However, the D-level task was not of any interest to him at all, but the only red S-level task on the bulletin board attracted his attention. S-Class Mission. Assist the X-Men in catching the suspects who invaded New York City. Task requirements: LV4 superpowers are preferred, and double bounty can be obtained according to performance. 99. Quest bounty, 1 million. Mission poster, Polaris. Is it actually a mission released by Lorna? Levi's looked at the quest in surprise. It seemed that Lorna encountered a lot of trouble this time. He actually released an S-level quest, and also indicated that he needed a LV4 power user. An S-rank mission has a bounty of 1 million. Which is simply the fastest way to get rich. However, this is not something that ordinary people can get. After thinking about it, he called Lorna to find out about it. Vice, why are you free to call me? Lorna's surprised voice was heard as soon as the call was answered. Can't you just call if it's alright? Levi's coughed awkwardly. He didn't seem to have called Lorna much. What I want to say is that if you want what I say, just come here directly. Lorna was so surprised because Levi's used to use the space to move directly and rarely made phone calls when he approached her. Well then. 35. Levi hung up the phone helplessly. At the same time, the other side, Lorna also put away the phone. Hey, big sister, are we going now? It seems that no one in the school has taken up that task. 35. A looking girl in a gothic dress asked with a cigarette and Erlang's legs crossed. Fran, can't you be more ladylike? Look at what you want? A dark-haired woman on the other side frowned and scolded. Humphrey, I don't care about you. 9. Fran snorted proudly, ignoring the other party. I think we can catch that guy. But I just didn't play well last time. The last girl with dark circles said with a sleepy look. Don't say anything, our mission has already been taken over. As soon as 99 Lorna opened his mouth, the three of them stopped talking. It was at this time a figure appeared in the conference room. Wes, you're here. Lorna smiled when she saw the person who came, which made the other three people couldn't believe it. After all, as their eldest sister, She has never smiled like this to anyone. It seems that you guys are worrying about the mission. Levi's laughed. How do you know? Lorna was a little surprised. Because I have been to the mission hall of the school before. If you have any trouble, please let me know. It happens that I am free now, Levi's said and sat down in Lorna's seat. Fran was not happy when he saw that he was sitting in the eldest sister's seat so unceremoniously. Hey, how can you sit in a big sister's seat? Come down quickly. Fran pointed at his nose with one hand on his hip and one finger. Seeing this, the other two girls on the side turned away from her, for fear of being implicated. According to the words of the two of them, the fool could also see that they had a close relationship, but the fool couldn't. Some speechless two people can only stay away. Are they? Levi's looked at the three 580-year-old women in surprise. They are my partners, Lorna introduced with some headache. This idiot is Fran, this is Phyllis, and this is Beth. Yo. Hello. Levi smiled and raised his hand to make a move. Raw forehead. Row is because Fran is so stupid, and also knows that this handsome man has an unusual relationship with his eldest sister. I see, you are the leader of the X-Men. I saw your photo in the school office. Phyllis, a petite figure with long brown hair, suddenly shouted. It is said that the leader of the X-Men has an unusual relationship with our eldest sister. Beth, a girl with dark circles, also said. After hearing the words of the two, Fran immediately looked dead. Levi's couldn't help laughing at her funny look. Okay, Lorna, let's talk about this mission first. Lorna didn't care about anything with Fran, and started talking about this mission instead. Chapter 208 The Criminal Waterman. The target is the X-Gene Awakening Potion. We found a few people doing evil everywhere in Queens. They were originally a group of criminals, and they became more rampant after awakening ability. Lorna said and took out a few pictures to show Levi's. I saw that one of the men in the photo was a blonde man. His upper body was no different from ordinary people, but his lower body was in the shape of water flow. And there are several blue-skinned power users beside him. They held tridents in their hands, and were wearing strange armors, and even had some scales on their faces, which looked very strange. The so-called waterman at the front, according to the investigation. His name is Morris Bench, because of the special reason of ability, he escaped from the water last time. 99. Lorna said and pointed to the blue-skinned power users. These power users are very strange. I asked Misaka to be unable to investigate their relevant information, and the tridents in their hands are opposite to each other. The power user has a restraining effect and is very tricky. 99. Levi's frowned at these blue-skinned people, because he had never seen such a person before. Could it be Avatar? Then what was their purpose? It's the X-Gene Awakening Potion, Lorna replied. Oh? So they are spies sent by other countries? 35. Although they are still sending the X-Gene Awakening Potion to the outside world, they cannot satisfy all countries now. And it does not rule out that other countries dislike the X-Gene's awakening medicine is too expensive, and want to use other means. Although some countries do not support global energization on the surface, they have been secretly trying to crack the X-Gene Awakening Potion. Now the X-Gene Awakening Potion is a fragrant bun, and in the past half year, it has already sold for a sky-high price. There are even reselling ones that directly sell 1 million bottles. You must know that the X-Gene Awakening Potion is now sold for only tens of thousands of USD per bottle, and one bottle is enough to awaken 10 people. It can be said that just selling the X-Gene Awakening Potion is enough to make New York City's financial revenue enough. Not to mention Stark Industries. Many people's super abilities are flawed, and the use of technological equipment can make up for these flaws, such as Cyclops. Therefore, SCU's Agent Industry now has an additional project, which is to help power users customize various equipment. It is also a money-making project. So which organization are these people from? Lorna asked with a frown. I don't know about this. Levi spread his hands. You will only know after you catch them. Tell me about your plan. Lorna nodded, and then revealed her plan. Tonight, we will ship out a batch of X-Gene Awakening Potions, and we have already released the news. Presumably those people will definitely come back. Then we only need to follow this batch of X-Gene Awakening Potions. As long as those people show up. 9. As long as they appear within my perception range, they won't be able to run away. 55. Beth took the call and said confidently. Oh? Levi's looked at Beth with dark circles in surprise, not understanding why she was so confident. I forgot to introduce you. Lorna took the initiative to introduce. Beth's ability is tracking, and she has the ability to track other power users, but if the other party jumps into the water, there is no way. 9. Nice ability. Levi's nodded and then looked at Fran and Phyllis and said, what about you guys? Humphrey. My ability is broken. I have an independent space, and I usually put some hot weapons in it, such as this one. Fran suddenly pulled out a bazooka from under her skirt. Levi's was stunned. How could this ability feel the same as a guy who was cut in half, and also used a hot weapon as an attack method? My ability is a protective shield, and ordinary weapons have no effect on me at all. Phyllis, who was pointed at by the bazooka, calmly opened a translucent circular shield. It seems that the protection ability is good. Definitely. If it can protect other people together, it will be even better. Cut. You can only open a protective cover. You have absolutely no combat effectiveness. Fran put away her weapon and curled her lips in disdain. It's enough to have a big sister in terms of attack. Phyllis gave her a contemptuous look. What do you mean by that? Does it mean that I am a bit redundant? Fran was very upset when she heard this. Levi's, who was watching the play, smiled and said to Lorna, "These players you found are not bad." Lorna shook her head helplessly. "It's just some problem children." Leakins. Night falls. The vehicle escorting the X-Gene awakening potion had already departed, and the destination was the airport. Once something is on the plane, it's not easy to rob. So Lorna judged that these people would definitely take action on the way, and definitely did not rule out the possibility of the other party ambushing at the airport. Levi's and the others followed behind the vehicle that was escorting the X-Gene awakening potion, and the driver was Fran. Unexpectedly, this somewhat out-of-the-way and lively problem girl is actually an old Siji. "The airport is in front. What should I do? Those guys don't seem to be here." Seeing that the vehicle carrying the X-Gene awakening potion was about to enter the airport, Fran said anxiously. Celery. Chapter 209 Railgun belonging to Lorna. Don't worry. They will appear. Levi said calmly. "Yes, those people will definitely not miss this opportunity." Lorna also nodded. Fran heard the words and did not speak. Soon the airport is getting closer. However, Morris Bench still did not show up. This is very confusing. Didn't that group of people receive the news of escorting the X-Gene awakening potion? 33 Fran guessed. Impossible. If the other party's purpose is the X-Gene awakening potion, he will definitely not miss this opportunity. Phyllis shook her head and denied her idea. "No, those guys are here," said Beth, closing her eyes. "What? Did you find them?" Lorna was also refreshed when she heard it. The corners of Levi's mouth were slightly upturned, and he had already discovered the group of people. When the transport vehicle entered the airport, batches of goods were loaded onto the plane. Soon everything was ready and the transport plane was ready to take off. However, at this time, the captain of the transport plane was ordered to stop taking off. Levi's and Lorna came to the transport plane. 580. "Are you sure they're in there?" Lorna asked, squinting at the transport plane. "Yes, they must be inside," Beth said firmly. "I didn't expect these stinky mice to hide in the transport plane ahead of time." No wonder they didn't find them along the way. Fran took out 2 submachine guns from the bottom of her skirt and looked very angry. They should have wanted to hijack the transport plane after it took off. Phyllis guessed. "Humphrey, there is no water here. Let's see where they flee." Lorna snorted coldly and waved one hand, and the rear hatch of the transport plane was violently opened. The corner of Levi's eyes twitched while watching. "Hey, Fran, let me ask you, does Lorna always say so violent when she's out on a mission?" Definitely. In the words of our eldest sister, she shouldn't handle the follow-up anyway." Fran shrugged and said indifferently. Hearing this, Leviston was speechless. Enter the warehouse of the transporter. In an instant, a harpoon stabbed at Lorna who was walking in front. "Humphrey Tilda." Lorna snorted disdainfully, then waved one hand, and a few pieces of iron sheet fell off the side of the cabin wall and flew over. Boom. The weight of the iron sheet is not light, and it directly smashes the attackers out. This harpoon is a little weird. Levi's also wondered why Lorna didn't control the opponent's weapon. After trying the electromagnetic force, he found out that the opponent's weapon had a strange power. You can't control it with electromagnetic force, unless using psychokinesis. No wonder Lorna didn't control the opponent's weapon. At this moment, several high-pressure water jets shot towards Lorna. Lorna waved one hand, and several iron sheets stood in front of him. "Taste my bullets." At this time, Fran also shot. The 2 submachine guns shot at each other frantically, completely ignoring those who couldn't shoot. However, when these bullets hit the waterman, they penetrated in an instant and did not cause any damage at all. It's even elementalized. Levi's looked surprised. Although the waterman in front of him only looked like a 3rd-level mutant, his ability was indeed a bit perverted. After the XMan elementalization, any physical attack can't hit him. Even the same elemental attack may not be able to hurt him. This is a very nice ability. He Tilda little girl, hot weapons are useless to me at all. I advise you to let me go. The waterman laughed proudly. Damn it. Again. 5. Fran put away the submachine gun angrily. She had absolutely no way to face this kind of enemy. "Last time I let you run away, I won't let you run again this time." Lorna snorted coldly. Ordinary physical attacks had no effect on this guy, so she took out a coin directly. Immediately afterwards, arcs flashed all over her body. This scene shocked Shuiran, although he is indeed immune to physical attacks, but lightning is his nemesis. After all, water conducts electricity. However, before he could beg for mercy, a dazzling thunderlight had penetrated his body, and by the way, penetrated the outer shell and wings of the transport plane. It seems that the transport plane is scrapped. Hilda. Although the physical attack could not hurt the waterman, the strong current made him twitch continuously. It's amazing. Every time I look at Big Sister's head with this move, my blood boils, Phyllis said with admiration on her face. Yeah, there is always a feeling of faith. Even Fran looked adored. Looks like I won't be able to catch this guy this time. 35. Levi's crossed his chest with his arms and yawned a little boringly. Vice, I'm very happy that you can come with me. Lorna changed her look like a queen just now, turned around and hugged his hand and smiled. But I'm bored. Lorna had no choice but to whisper in his ear. The big deal is to go back and do whatever you say. Really? Levi's eyes lit up. You don't have any perverted ideas, do you? Lorna looked worried. Cough. No, I just want to walk on the dry road. All of a sudden, Levi said with a dry cough and serious face. Lorna immediately rolled his eyes at him and ignored him. Chapter 210 Atlantis. The ancient mutant remnant. The battle is not over yet, and the three blue-skinned power users still want to resist, but this is just catching turtles in the urn. Seeing this, the three looked at each other, and then one of them took her off the pillar-shaped thing that he had been carrying. This pillar is about 1 meter long, and the whole body exudes a golden luster, but it does not look like any metal. And there are strange runes on this pillar. Levi's tried and couldn't use electromagnetic force control. It seems that this thing is a special magic weapon like those weapons in their hands. Immediately afterwards, one of them suddenly cut his wrist, allowing blood to flow on the pillar. For Atlantis. The three suddenly knelt down and shouted piously. The next moment, the golden pillar suddenly lit up, and a red light spread out in all directions. Be careful. That is, when Levi's was ready to act, Phyllis suddenly stood up, and a transparent protective cover enveloped everyone in it. However, when the red light came into contact with the protective cover instantly dissolved like the first sunshine after snow. Oops, the shield is broken. Phyllis was a little panicked. This was the first time her protective shield had been broken, so she was in a hurry. At this moment, Levi's stood in front of everyone. When the red light touched Levi's, it was reflected back instantly. What exactly is this? Lorna frowned. These red rays of light spread around, but did not cause damage to any objects around. It should be a weapon specially aimed at power users. As you can see, the general ability will be instantly eroded by this red energy. If the body is hit by this red energy, I am afraid that it will become slaughtered in a short time. Lamb 2. Levi's rubbed his chin thoughtfully. So that's how it is. Lorna's eyes turned cold after hearing this. Thanks to the leaders, otherwise we would have been caught. Phyllis looked at him with admiration. Just call me. Levi smiled. At the same time, the three blue-skinned power users all stood up in shock. It's impossible. Absolutely impossible. Why didn't you get hit? Who the hell are you? Humphrey. Now it's my turn to ask you. Tell me, who are you? Levi's asked in a cold voice with his arms crossed. Humphrey. It's impossible for us to say it. The three of them were stubborn and had no intention of saying it. I saw that they picked up the harpoon again, obviously wanting to fight to the death. However, in the next moment, several iron sheets flew out from the surroundings, directly placing them firmly on the cabin wall. Now you can say it. People on the ground, although you are very powerful, we will never betray the king. One of them said firmly. This guy has already become a prisoner and is so arrogant. Let me teach him a lesson. Fran said, and took out the electric shock stick from the bottom of her skirt, obviously wanting to let these people taste the taste of being electrocuted. But it was stopped by Levi's. Let me come. Using the power of the mind, he instantly understood the forces behind it. Levi's said with a look of surprise, I didn't expect that you are the Atlantis civilization from the bottom of the Atlantic Ocean. This civilization is only a guess, and I didn't expect it to actually exist. Seeking flowers. What? Lorna and several people were also very surprised when they heard what he said. Although the mystery of Atlantis has always been circulated, no one has really seen it with their own eyes. Therefore, this civilization is only regarded as a rumor. Didn't expect it to actually exist. How is it possible? How did you know? One of them was a little frightened. He didn't understand why the other party knew their origins. Who are they? Lorna asked suspiciously. They are the remnants of the Atlantean civilization, and they were all envoys by Aquaman Namor Mackenzie. Levi's explained it briefly. Namor Mackenzie is the daughter of the Princess of Atlantis, the land of the sea, and Captain Leonard Mackenzie from Y. After becoming the king of Atlantis, the weapon is the holy Aquaman star trident that can control the power of the sea to create storms. But the three of them don't know why Aquaman Namor brought them to land. And at the moment Aquaman Namor is on Liberty Island. Human, you. Hearing what he said, the three of them stared at him in horror. Levi's pouted and ignored them. Let's get these three people arrested. Let's go to Liberty Island and take a look. Okay. Lorna nodded, then made the call. Nailed it. Then let's go. Levi's waved his hand, and the group disappeared instantly. Mountain. Chapter 211 The King of Atlantis, Aquaman Namor. The Statue of Liberty Island is an iconic New York building that has been restored by Levi's since it was almost destroyed by Magneto last time. And in the last New York War, it was once again destroyed by Chitauri's Leviathan. But in the end, he was still able to recover. The result is that the goddess looks more and more like new. After all, every time it is destroyed, It will be refurbished. And at the moment on the goddess statue, a shirtless man with short hair and strong muscles is looking down at Levi's, who is Aquaman Namor. When they looked up, a golden trident emitting golden light suddenly appeared in the palm of Aquaman Namor, and then he lifted the 583 trident and knocked it on the ground again. Boom! An anti-red energy spread toward the surrounding. This is far more powerful energy than before. Humphrey. Levi snorted coldly and then stood in front of Lorna and the others. With a wave of his hand, the blood-colored energy dissipated instantly. Seeing this, Aquaman Namor's pupils suddenly shrank, and at the same time he said solemnly, "Human, why don't you bow when you see this king?" Madness. Seeing Aquaman Namor's aloof appearance, even Levi's was a little angry. I saw his thoughts move, and a mental pressure directly and fiercely pressed on Aquaman Namor. Aquaman Namor, who was originally aloof, felt this powerful spiritual pressure, and one fell from the goddess without a steady footing. Damn, how is this possible? Aquaman Namor, who got up from the ground, suddenly had cold sweat on his face, and saw that the golden trident in his hand released a faint light to help him resist this spiritual pressure. Levi's couldn't help sneering when he saw this. This Aquaman Namor is a soft egg, and all the abilities that can instantly subdue other power users are derived from the golden trident in his hand. This trident is a replica of the weapon of Poseidon, the god of the sea. Human, are you provoking me? Aquaman Namor shouted angrily, pointing his golden trident at him. The next moment, several streams of water shot out from the lake next to the statue of the goddess, targeting them. Control the water? Levi smiled disdainfully. Be careful, Phyllis reminded, and then prepared to use the protective cover. However, before she could do it, Levi's waved one hand, and all the water flow was frozen in the next moment. Okay. It's amazing. How much ability does our leader have? Fran murmured to himself while watching this scene. I haven't heard of being able to have multiple abilities at the same time. Beth also looked puzzled. I've heard some. Phyllis touched her chin and said, it is said that our leader is the first LV5 among the power users, and he has so many abilities that he can't even count them. The important thing is that every super ability is very, very powerful. Is it so powerful? Fran expressed some doubts. Here, Levi's ignored the discussion of the three girls behind him. He looked at Aquaman Namor and said lightly, if you have any other means, use it, or you will honestly explain your purpose. Arrogant. Aquaman Namor shouted angrily and said, Human, I admit that your strength is very strong, but no matter how strong you are, how can you fight Jiang He? 99. The voice fell, and the golden trident in his hand released a dazzling golden light. Rumbling. The ground also trembled at this time. Immediately afterward, the Hudson River outside Liberty Island suddenly turned a huge wave and slapped towards the shore. Aquaman Namor sneered at this, with the power of the golden trident enough to set off huge amounts of tsunami, flooding the entire island couldn't be easier. How is this mutant going to deal with it? At this moment, Levi still waved his hand lightly. The next moment, something astonishing happened. I saw waves of more than 10 meters high on the river surface, but they were frozen in an instant, and even the entire river surface was frozen. A cold wind blew through, causing everyone who saw this scene to shudder subconsciously, and the shock in their hearts could not stop for a long time. All your ability comes from this staff. Without this staff, how much strength do you have? I don't know when. The golden trident in the hands of Aquaman Namor actually appeared in the hands of Levi's. He felt it carefully, and there was indeed a very powerful power in this golden trident. It was no wonder that Aquaman Namor was able to exert such a powerful strength through this. This is already stronger than most level 4 mutants. The golden trident, which was always regarded as a treasure and never left his body, suddenly disappeared in his hands. Aquaman Namor was stunned for a moment, and then angrily shouted, "Hurry up and return my 4.1 things to me." Saying that, he actually raised his fist and rushed over, looking like he was going to fight Melili. Without the trident, I wouldn't even be able to fight. It's a bit of a waste. Levi's shook his head disdainfully. Don't move, or I'll shoot you into a hornet's nest. Fran took out 2 submachine guns from the bottom of her skirt and aimed them at Aquaman Namor. Aquaman Namor raised his hand immediately upon seeing this. If the golden trident was still in his hand, he could completely ignore the threat of thermal weapons. But now without the golden trident, he is just a little stronger than ordinary people. Chapter 212 Going to Atlantis. Maybe we can talk about it. Without the golden trident, Aquaman Namor could only admit it. Very well, let's talk about why you, the king of the ocean, came to land. Levi's waved the golden trident with one hand and disappeared. Using the power of space to open up a place to store items is very constructive for him. Aquaman Namor was a little anxious when he saw that his baby was gone, but he couldn't help it now that he was anxious. Come on, don't let me use other means. Levi sneered with his arms crossed. I said. I said. Aquaman Namor was afraid that he would suddenly attack, and said quickly, actually, we people of Atlantis did not intend to come to land, but last time we were aware of the ancient mutants' revival, so we came out to see. After listening to Aquaman Namor's explanation, Levi's finally understood the ins and outs. It turned out that after Apocalypse was restored in pyramids, Atlantis got the news. To ask why Atlantis can get the news, it is because Atlantis was originally a remnant of the ancient mutants. That's why they will get the news of Apocalypse's recovery. However, when they came to land, they couldn't find any news of Apocalypse, and they came to New York after going around. After coming to New York, they still didn't find the news of Apocalypse, but the X-Gene Awakening potion attracted them. Not everyone in Atlantis is a mutant, so they set their sights on the X-Gene Awakening potion. Are you interested in the X-Gene Awakening potion? Levi said with a playful smile. Don't dare, don't dare. Aquaman Namor shook his head again, and now he still dares to use the idea of X-Gene Awakening potion, and his life is at risk. It doesn't matter. In fact, I'm also very interested in your Atlantis. What do you think? I will not betray my clan. Aquaman Namor looked firm. As the king of Atlantis, he could not bring wolves into the house. Don't worry, maybe we can work together. We are all mutants after all. Levi smiled. How do you want to trade? Aquaman Namor asked cautiously. It's very simple. Don't you need the X-Gene Awakening potion? Then exchange your technology for it. Atlantis, as a remnant of ancient mutants that has been passed down for a long time, must have extraordinary technological power, which will play a great role in promoting the development of Academy City. That's why Levi's proposed such a cooperation. Aquaman Namor was silent for a moment, then nodded. Okay, I promise you. But you have to return my weapon to me. No problem. Levi's, a mere golden trident, didn't even pay attention to it, so he gave it back to him. Get ready then, let's go. 99. I can take you to Atlantis, but what about my minions? Aquaman Namor frowned. Those of your subordinates have been caught by us. I will have them sent over now. Lorna said and took out the phone. By the way, bring the batch of X-Gene Awakening potion with you, as a gift to Atlantis. Levi's instructed. No problem. 39. Lorna made an okay gesture, and then explained it on the phone. After a while, a plane stopped beside them. The three subordinates of Aquaman Namor and the X-Gene Awakening potion were all brought over. Katie, why are you here? Levi's was a little surprised, but he didn't expect Shadowcat to send these people here. I heard that Vice, you actually participated in Lorna's mission, so come and see if it's very difficult. In fact, I'm more free now. No need, this is my mission after all. And Vice help is enough. Katie was interrupted by Lorna before she could finish her sentence. Katie had no choice but to give up. Soon everyone boarded the plane and set off. Hey, I'm curious, why do you Atlanteans live in water? The lively Fran asked curiously. Aquaman Namor didn't want to answer this question at first, but he answered honestly after looking at Levi's. 583. According to records, Atlantis was originally on land at first, but it sank into the sea for unknown reasons. At first, our ancestors also gave up Atlantis to live in other places, but then the ancestors returned to Atlantis again, and I don't know why. That's not right. How did you adapt to living in the deep sea? Phyllis asked suspiciously. The pressure in the deep sea is not something that the human body can withstand, and the powerful water pressure can instantly burst the human body. So it stands to reason that it is impossible for humans to live in the sea. Aquaman Namor glanced at her and then explained, although most of the Atlantis civilization has been destroyed, there is still a lot of technology left, with which we can live freely in the sea. Don't forget that they are all mutants, and there is nothing strange about living in the sea. Beth thought of this. So it is. Phyllis and Fran suddenly realized. Chapter 213. The shock of Aquaman Namor, signing in Phyllis. Atlantis has been perfected for so many years, and the dome left by this ancestor can separate the sea water, so ordinary people living in it have no effect at all. As for mutants, I think you also know that the abilities we awaken are all changed according to life. Levi's nodded involuntarily at Aquaman Namor's words. In fact, the mutant super ability awakening is really related to the living environment and ideas. For example, if some people are afraid of fire, they will awaken the ability related to water, and if they are afraid of being hurt, they will awaken the ability of defense. It is precisely because of this that most of the abilities awakened by mutants living in Atlantis under the sea allow them to live in the deep sea. At this time, Aquaman Namor seemed to be hesitant to speak. Seeing this, Levi smiled and said, if you have something to say, just say it. Actually, I would like to know the success rate of this X-Gene Awakening medicine, as well as the side effects. Aquaman Namor asked. You don't have to worry about the side effects, because the X-Gene Awakening medicine has no side effects at all. As for the success rate, how long have you been in New York? Levi's asked rhetorically. It's been a week. Aquaman Namor answered honestly. Then don't you notice some changes in the street? Aquaman Namor was stunned for a moment when he heard the words, and then he recalled that he found that the streets were indeed different, and he found that many mutants were using ability in a fair and open manner. I even saw a lot of weird people. He didn't care about it at first, but now he thinks that he can use ability in the human world in a fair and open manner, which is really unimaginable. Could it be ... Aquaman Namor suddenly thought of a possibility. That's right, that's what you want to be. The X-Gene Awakening Potion has made this city a city of mutants. Levi's nodded. What? Aquaman Namor's eyes widened in disbelief. He didn't expect the mutants left on land years later to do such a thing. The reason why their Atlantis remnants returned to the bottom of the sea was largely the same as the treatment of the Inhumans. It is precisely because of the exclusion of human beings that they will return to the dark seabed to live. But he didn't expect that many years later, mutant cities would appear in the human world, which made him a little unbelievable. There is no need to press so hard. Let me tell you the success rate of the X-Gene Awakening Potion. Levi smiled and said, in extreme emotional situations, the awakening rate can reach 99%. 35. Hearing this, Aquaman Namor fell into shock again. He originally thought that this potion had a 60% success rate. In that case, even at the expense of some people, Atlantis would be able to grow rapidly. I didn't expect it to have such a high success rate. Thinking of this, Aquaman Namor's eyes suddenly became hot, and he only felt that this time on land was his smart decision. The speed of the plane was fast, and it left New York in a few moments. Still, Levi's felt that the pace was too slow. It would take at least a few days to travel to the Atlantic at this speed. So he directly used the power of space to move in a small range of space. In an instant they were in the Atlantic Ocean. No one would have imagined that under this unremarkable sea area, there was actually a huge prehistoric mutant civilization hidden. Maybe someone once guessed what secrets lie under the Atlantic Ocean, but no one has ever been able to detect it here. That's right, it's here, and under this sea is Atlantis. 39. Aquaman Namor has a very good sense of direction and finds the entrance very quickly. But they have to go to sea. This is a little troublesome, and ordinary submarines can't go that far into the seabed. Levi's frowned. Suddenly his eyes lit up, and then he looked at Phyllis. Isn't her shield the best diving gear? Ding. Does the host sign into the mutant Phyllis? Double experience or super ability? Sign into super ability! 35. Ding. Sign-in is successful. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability protective cover, with 100 experience points. Sure enough, Levi's got the same shield that Phyllis got. Definitely, if it is used by him at LV6, it will be too powerful. Vice, how are we going to get down? Lorna frowned and she couldn't think of anything else but to ask Levi's. Would you like to borrow a submarine from SHIELD? Fran suggested. It's impossible for a submarine to dive into deep water. Phyllis's words directly dispelled Fran's thoughts. Leaky on how. Aquaman Namor has nothing to do with this either. Although his golden trident can separate the water, it is impossible to bring so many people into the deep sea. Don't worry, let's go down. 35. The corners of Levi's mouth rose and everyone was dragged down to the sea by psychokinesis. Yeah tilde. Wow tilde. The others were fine, but the three girls. Fran screamed in fear. Levi's couldn't help covering his ears. I said you can stop now. Is there such a fuss? Only then did the three women open their eyes, and what surprised them was that everyone was wrapped in a translucent ball with mental retardation, and was slowly sinking into the sea. Chapter 214 Underwater City. The Shock of Atlantis. This is Phyllis. Your ability, Fran exclaimed. However, Phyllis was a little dazed. It's not me. 35. Fran and Beth were stunned by this answer. Who would it be if you weren't? They had never seen anyone else who could shield this ability, and there were only a few of them here. Phyllis suddenly had a flash of inspiration, and she shocked Raw. It is said that the leader of the X-Men has a variety of super abilities, and no one has ever known how many abilities he has. As soon as these words came out, the three women's eyes all turned to Levi's with a look of admiration on their faces. Seeing this, Levi's smiled slightly, and he found that it was not bad to go out with these girls to perform tasks. At least it was very interesting. As they kept sinking to the depths of the sea, the surroundings became darker and darker. There are more than 1,000 deep seas here, and the surrounding sea water can easily squeeze the steel into shapeshifting. If the human body is exposed to this kind of pressure, it will be crushed instantly. Is Fran and the three of them are a little worried. Is it not here yet? Fran couldn't help asking. Aquaman Namor kept looking around. We have arrived. As he spoke, the golden trident in his hand suddenly burst into golden light. The next moment, I saw a wide range of colorful rays of light appearing on the bottom of the sea. Immediately afterwards, a huge underwater city radiating light appeared in front of everyone. Wow! Is this the underwater city? Even Lorna couldn't help but sigh. That's why Atlantis is hidden too deep. No wonder no one found it. Fran also sighed. Welcome to Atlantis. Aquaman Namor left the protective shield, and then brought everyone to the gate of Atlantis. Here, they, can clearly see that there is a protective shield like a bubble over the entire Atlantis. It is precisely because of the existence of this bubble that there is no seawater in the city, so even ordinary people can survive here. And there is no sunlight, but all kinds of luminous plants make it as bright as day. It can be said that in terms of scenery alone, it is simply a must. After everyone enters the bubble, they can completely suck the air out of the raw. Aquaman Namor, however, frowned. What's wrong? Levi's was a little puzzled. I don't know what happened, but the guards here are gone. Aquaman Namor frowned. Usually, this exit is handled by a small team of soldiers, but now there is not even a single one, which makes him very strange. Thinking of this, Aquaman Namor had a bad feeling in his heart. Everyone walked towards the Atlantis palace. It was at this moment that everyone discovered that the streets were actually full of corpses of humans and sea beasts. "What's going on?" Lorna asked, frowning. "It's a sea beast," Aquaman Namor said with a gloomy expression. "These sea beasts are large fish distributed around Atlantis. They are ferocious by nature, but generally they cannot break in." "Could it be that someone manipulated them?" Fran guessed. "Impossible. Atlantis is the environment we live on, and no one will destroy it." Aquaman Namor shook his head and said, "Atlantis can only be in the deep sea. Once the environment here is destroyed, everyone knows what will happen to those who live in the deep sea, unless it is the kind of person who is full of despair in life and wants to take revenge on society." Just when everyone was puzzled, a blue-skinned person suddenly ran in front of him, similar to the three subordinates of Aquaman Namor. When Aquaman Namor saw the person coming, he immediately greeted him. "Tell me, what's going on here?" "It's the king. The king. You are finally here." The visitor looked up at Aquaman Namor, and knelt on the ground with a collapsed face. "What the hell happened? Say it." 33 Aquaman Namor shouted. "It was a woman who came in with a sea beast, and all the brothers who did not surrender were killed," the visitor said with a face full of fear. "What?" Aquaman Namor was furious. He didn't expect someone to break into the palace while he was away. "Where is that person now?" The person who came pointed to the back. Just wanted to say something, but suddenly fell down, and then his body also withered instantly and turned into a mummified corpse. This scene made Lorna jump a few people. Aquaman Namor was full of anger when he saw this, and then ignored Levi's and ran directly towards the palace. "What are we going to do?" Lorna asked with a frown. "Obviously Atlantis has encountered a foreign invasion, so let's follow along and take a look," Levi said while rubbing his chin. Just now, his telepathic perception sensed that there was a strange mutant in the palace, and the person who invaded Atlantis was estimated to be him. But don't know who the other party is? Does Marvel still have powerful mutants he doesn't know about? Chapter 215 Summoning Aquaman Poseidon. The whole of Atlantis seemed very quiet. When Levi's and Lorna came to the front of the palace together, they saw a large number of Atlantis prostrate on the ground, kneeling respectfully. "What are you doing? Get me up." Aquaman Namor at the moment angrily wanted to pull these people up, but no one paid him any attention. "I am the king of Atlantis." Aquaman Namor came before everyone and took out the golden trident symbolizing the throne. Yet no one paid him any attention. "These people should be under control," Levi said lightly with his arms crossed. Aquaman Namor suddenly looked a little surprised when he heard the words, and then he turned around and ran towards the palace. And when he came to the palace, he saw that his relatives were also kneeling on the ground in a daze. "Damn, it's a forbidden place." Looking at the direction of everyone's pilgrimage, Aquaman Namor's expression changed dramatically. "Forbidden land?" Levi's was a little puzzled. "Inside is the place where the ancestors of the royal family of Atlantis were buried, and only ancestors who have made outstanding contributions to Atlantis are eligible to be buried here." 39. Aquaman Namor explained with a gloomy face, and then he broke into the forbidden area directly. The crowd followed. Soon they found the intruder in the cemetery. It was a person wearing a black robe and a black hood who couldn't see his face clearly, but judging from his body curve, it should be a woman. "Intruder, who are you?" Aquaman Namor looked at the woman in front of him with a trident in his eyes and asked. "Your king." The woman's voice was very clear and sounded like she was young, and when she turned around, she saw a pair of deep eyes that attracted everyone's attention. The woman had black hair, black pupils, and a bumpy figure. It was hard to imagine that this woman could control everyone in Atlantis. "I'm the king," Aquaman Namor said coldly. "Now there is only one king in Atlantis. Where are the other kings?" "It's almost the same as his queen." "Let go of my people now, or I'll be rude." The golden trident in the hands of Aquaman Namor smashed heavily on the ground, and red halos spread out. Levi's blocked these halos at will, while on the other side, the black-haired woman had no intention of blocking it. Seeing this, Aquaman Namor was overjoyed, knowing that once the light released by the golden trident came into contact with the mutants, it would make the mutants feel sore all over, and no longer have the slightest fighting ability. However, the black-haired woman in front of her did not dodge. Ha 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 tilde, now you don't have any resistance." Aquaman Namor laughed. However, the black-haired woman glanced at him like an idiot, then turned around to look at the tombstones in the cemetery, as if recalling something. Aquaman Namor was stunned for a moment, and immediately became a little embarrassed. "This is what you forced me to do. After killing you, my people will recover." After speaking, he picked up the golden trident and rushed over. However, as soon as he approached the black-haired woman, he didn't see what she was doing, and Aquaman Namor suddenly fell to his knees all over. How is this possible? Aquaman Namor, who was kneeling on the ground, was full of disbelief, and he didn't expect that he would actually kneel. Immediately afterwards, he tried hard to stand up, but there was always a mental pressure that restrained him. "Who the hell are you?" Aquaman Namor raised his head angrily and asked. However, The black-haired woman obviously didn't answer what he meant. Intruder, no matter how strong you are, choosing to fight with me here is your biggest mistake. Seeking flowers. Aquaman Namor gritted his teeth and raised the golden trident in his hand. The golden trident suddenly released streaks of golden light, and the next moment the entire cemetery also responded, seeing blurred translucent figures flying out of the tombstone. This is. The black-haired woman was a little surprised when she saw all this. Ha 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 tilde yes, these are the souls and wills of the ancestors. Aquaman Namor got up from the ground tremblingly and laughed proudly. Each of the kings of Atlantis in all dynasties was a powerful mutant warrior. They led the Atlanteans to overcome obstacles and clear all obstacles, thus preserving the heritage of the Atlantis. Even in death, their soul and will still protect the Atlanteans. And now, their souls and wills are awakened. Who is Raw calling me? Suddenly a majestic voice resounded throughout the cemetery. Hearing this voice, Aquaman Namor trembled in his heart and immediately showed a look of surprise on his face. He didn't expect the first king of Atlantis to wake up. This was the first king who led his clan to find Atlantis at the bottom of the sea. After so many years, the soul and will still haven't worn off. That's right, this is Aquaman Poseidon. However, when Poseidon saw the black-haired woman, he was stunned, and then he said with some uncertainty, couldn't you be the royal princess before Atlantis sank? That's right, I remember you. The black-haired woman was a little surprised. She didn't expect that after so many years, someone still knew her. Chapter 216 The Ancient Mutant Black Queen. Hearing the ancestor's words and the cautious expression on his face, Aquaman Namor couldn't help trembling. The royal princess before Atlantis sank? This is at least 18,000 years ago. Aquaman Namor had heard the story before Atlantis didn't sink. At that time, it was the royal princess who led the people of Atlantis to survive on land, and which princess had a frightening title called the Black Queen. Unexpectedly, this legendary princess appeared in front of him more than 18,000 years later. Thinking of this, Aquaman Namor's expression suddenly became respectful. Your Majesty the Great Princess, please forgive my offense. May, 83 inches. Call me the Black Queen, I like this name. The Black Queen turned her head and said plainly, this time I return to Atlantis, I want to lead us mutants to regain our glory. 99. Hearing this, Aquaman Namor looked embarrassed. His Royal Highness the Great Black Queen, now that human technology is developing rapidly, and there are even weapons to destroy the world, it is almost impossible for us to conquer the human world. Before he could finish speaking, he was interrupted by the Black Queen waving her hand. You don't have to worry about this, because the human world has something that can turn ordinary people into mutants, and there is already a city that has become a mutant city. We just need to rule them. Hearing this, everyone's expressions were different. Aquaman Namor couldn't help but look at Levi's. Isn't the city of mutants mentioned by the Black Queen exactly New York? And the thing that can make ordinary people into mutants is probably the X-gene awakening medicine. After hearing what the Black Queen said, Levi's and Lorna looked at each other, and both of them looked at each other. After a long time, the Black Queen actually learned about the mutant city and the X-gene awakening potion, and then she planned to lead her subordinates of Atlantis to return to the ground to rule all mutants. This is a good idea. And with the strength of the Black Queen, I am afraid that neither Professor X nor Magneto can stop her. If it weren't for Levi's, I'm afraid she would have succeeded. But if he was there, he just wanted to say that the Black Queen was just thinking about shit. He still knows something about the Black Queen. The Black Queen is not only a mutant, but also a powerful magician. Her main super ability is that she can absorb the vitality of others and make herself immortal. Those who have been sucked in vitality will dry up and die and become dust. The Black Queen was once the princess of Atlantis. Definitely, Levi's doesn't know much about these things in ancient times. The Black Queen he learned was a member of the Hellfire Club, the opposite of the X-Men in an alternate universe. But now the idea hits him. Levi's thought of this and couldn't help PSSD laugh out loud. After the Black Queen heard this unbridled laughter, she looked over with cold eyes. You're not an Atlantean, but you're also a mutant, so submit to me, and I'll lead you to rule the world. Perhaps sensing his strength, the Black Queen did not act easily, but instead opened her mouth to solicit. And hearing this, Levi's laughed even more happily. I said, Black Queen, have you lived too long? People are getting confused with age. Hearing this, the Black Queen's face turned cold, and a spiritual magic attacked immediately. However, Levi's still did not change his face and said, Black Queen, I have to say that your wishful thinking is very good. 35. Nowadays, there are mutant cities in the human world, and they also have the X-gene awakening potion that makes ordinary people mutants, and you only need to control the mutant cities. You can reap the benefits of the fisherman. Okay. Idea. Levi's couldn't help but applaud her. I was originally the king of mutants, and it was a matter of course for me to submit to me. The Black Queen frowned when she saw that her mental magic had no effect. Hey Tilda, that's really justified, but do you know who founded the Mutant Academy? Levi smiled with his arms crossed. Who? Could it be you? The Black Queen asked in surprise. Congratulations, you got it. This time, The Black Queen was really surprised. I didn't expect that the founder of the mutant city would come to Atlantis on the same day as her. But that's right, isn't it? Submit to me. I will lead the mutants to restore their former glory, the Black Queen said with a high-level look. Hey Tilda, you are really shameless. Even Levi's was a little speechless. It was the first time he had seen such a narcissistic person. A mere Black Queen is just a 4th-level mutant, and she actually wants to make him surrender. She just laughed out loud. Ha ha ha, Tilda laughing dead man. What kind of royal princess is so narcissistic? Fran also laughed mercilessly and loudly. Are all the so-called ancient mutants so arrogant? Lorna 4.1 shook his head, very disappointed with the performance of the Black Queen. The so-called ancient mutants are just like this. Apocalypse is like this. So is the Black Queen in front of me. They're all just poor bastards immersed in their own world. As everyone knows, today's era is no longer ancient. Maybe Magneto and Professor X are not the opponents of the Black Queen, but Lorna and the others who have the fragments of the power of the Phoenix can definitely crush the Black Queen. What's more, it is not surprising that there are even 5th-level mutants in New York City today. After all, where is the mutant base? The mere Black Queen wants to occupy the magpie's nest, which is completely whimsical. Chapter 217 Sign into the Black Queen. Aquaman Namor surrenders. Facing the ruthless ridicule of everyone, the Black Queen's face also turned cold, and a trace of killing intent flashed in her eyes. No nonsense. I saw a red light flashing in her eyes. In an instant, a spiritual magic swept towards the crowd. Seeing this, Levi sneered, use mental attack in front of me. It's just courting death. In an instant, a powerful spiritual force burst out, instantly crushing the Black Queen's spiritual attack magic. The next moment, Levi's brought the Black Queen into a spiritual space. How is that possible? The Black Queen was shocked. She really could not have imagined that the mental power of the person in front of her was so powerful. Humphrey, what should I do with you? Levi sneered, let's do some torture first. The next moment, the Black Queen seemed to have entered the space, stabbing countless knives into her body. The Black Queen couldn't help screaming. However, this is only the beginning. One day in the spiritual space, only a few seconds have passed in the outside world. When Levi's regained his mental strength, with a plop, the Black Queen instantly collapsed to the ground, sweating profusely, gasping for breath with a pale face. At the same time, she looked at Levi's with some fear. No one knew what kind of torture she was subjected to in the mental space, and whenever she recalled it, she couldn't help breaking out in a cold sweat. Who the hell are you? The Black Queen asked tremblingly. The corners of Levi's lips curled into a smile. You can call me Raw God. Hearing this, the corners of the Black Queen's eyes twitched slightly, and then she couldn't hold back any longer and fainted. What to do? What to do with her? Lorna asked, looking at the Black Queen. This guy dares to attack Academy City's idea. I think it will be solved directly. Fran took out 2 submachine guns from her skirt and said eagerly. In fact, Fran's identity is not simple. She is an agent of a certain organization, but after the New York War, that organization was eliminated by her. So she is very grateful for the opportunity brought to her by the New York War, and she also likes this city full of mutants very much. Any threat to Academy City's existence, she will take action without hesitation. No, this guy might still be useful. Levi's shook his head. As an ancient mutant, there must be a lot of knowledge in his mind. And she has ancient mutant genes. To make the X-Gene Awakening Potion also requires ancient mutant genes, so it is necessary to keep the Black Queen. Aquaman Namor has no opinion on this. The appearance of the Black Queen will not do any good to Atlantis, and will also take his power. So no matter what Levi's does with the Black Queen, he has no problem. The key is that he doesn't dare to have an opinion. Even the Black Queen is instantly defeated. How can he dare to have other opinions? Levi's directly used the power of the mind to control the Black Queen, just like the original Apocalypse, and then directly opened the portal to send the Black Queen back to be with the Apocalypse. The 2 ancient mutants will continue to contribute to the mutants in the future. Definitely. He didn't forget to sign in before sending the Black Queen away. Ding. Is the host checking into the Black Queen? Double experience or super ability? Sign into super ability, 35. Ding. Sign in successfully. Congratulations to the host for obtaining the super ability life absorption, with 100 experience points. Levi's was a little surprised, but he didn't expect to get the ability of life absorption. This ability is somewhat similar to the naughty energy absorption, but the Black Queen's life absorption can absorb some of the opponent's power while also controlling the opponent. If she directly sucks the opponent dry, the absorbed vitality will make her immortal and youthful. The Black Queen can live for nearly 20,000 years, precisely because of the existence of this ability. However, Levi's does not need this ability. After merging the Phoenix, he has already entered the realm of the gods. His body is extremely perfect, and it can also be molecularized. It can be said that as long as he does not want to die, then he is an immortal existence. The same goes for Lorna and Clarice, who have fragments of the power of the Phoenix in their bodies. After the Black Queen was dealt with, the Atlanteans who were controlled also recovered. Lord Vice, 583 We Atlantis are willing to obey your arrangement. Oh? Levi's looked at Aquaman Namor, who was kneeling in front of him, with some surprise. He didn't expect the other party to have such courage, so he directly surrendered with Atlantis. But this is normal, after all. He even solved the Black Queen easily. Aquaman Namor is really a little scared. Fear that one day Levi's will suddenly wipe out their Atlanteans. What's more, surrender is also very beneficial. Now Levi's has created a city of mutants, and there is also the X-Gene Awakening Potion, a potion that changes the world. Sooner or later the whole world will usher in the age of mutants. At that time, the Atlanteans will be able to live in the sunshine upright. And if you surrender now, you may still get a share of the pie, so why not do it? Levi still didn't know the careful thoughts in his mind, but he didn't say it. Since the other party is willing to surrender, then he has no reason to refuse. Chapter 218 The Robbery. Spider-Man. The matter of the Black Queen is over, and the issue of cooperation with the Atlantis is left to Lorna to deal with. After returning to the Mutant Academy, Levi's began to salt fish again. When you have nothing to do, go to the Mexican Cuckoo Sisters to have a look. Since the success of the X-Gene Awakening Potion, Marv and Phoebe are no longer needed in the X-Gene Underground Laboratory, so Levi's dropped them to the Sky Battleship base to manage them again. Although Misaka is in charge there are still some things that need to be handled by someone. Hey, an interesting thing happened at school recently. Would you like to hear it? Because it was the weekend, Clarice, Lauren, and Naughty didn't go to school. In fact, as a member of the XMan, they are also very busy. It can be said that several women in Levi's have all become the pillars of the XMan. After all, who made them all powerful 4th-level mutants? The girls didn't complain at all. Today is a rare rest time, so last night was very crazy, and it was not until almost noon that everyone got up and went to the living room to watch TV. Oh? What's the funny thing? Levi's was really interested. Lauren explained. Recently, a mysterious power user has appeared in the academy. He has accepted many B-level tasks, and even A-level tasks have been completed. Now the school is speculating about his identity. That's right. Some people even thought it was a 4th-level mutant from the student council pretending to be. After all, that guy wears a leather cover every time he goes on a mission. Clarice complained. Oh? Still wearing a holster? What's your dress, Tilda? Levi's took a sip of red wine casually. It's a red spider. This guy's aesthetics are really weird. Little Naughty couldn't help but complain. PSST 35. When Levi's heard this, he directly sprayed the red wine in his mouth. Fortunately, Lauren, who was sitting opposite, responded quickly enough to control the sprayed water molecules. You mean spider dress? Is there any problem? The three girls were a little surprised by his reaction. There is definitely a problem. You should all know that I traveled to a parallel world last time, and there is a guy in a spider tights. Levi's can only use this reason to explain why he knows Spider-Man. So that's the case. So is this guy powerful in the parallel world? Lauren asked curiously. That's awesome. Spider-Man's strength is not bad, to be honest, but it is not necessarily how strong it is, and its strength performance is at most the level of a 3rd-level mutant. Then what is the real identity of this guy? Asked the little Naughty. Well, just go and see. Levi's shrugged and didn't explain. At the same time, Spider-Man in a black hood is walking down the street. He is carrying a black cloth bag in his hand, which is the spider suit he designed himself, and a spider web launcher. It seems that he can go on a mission to fight criminals tonight, and earn some remuneration to support his family by the way. Since performing the mission as Spider-Man, Pete Parker has transferred a lot of mission rewards, which also makes him feel the pleasure of being rich. Taking this set of spider suits in hand, it cost a lot of money. Definitely, it's also worth it in his opinion. Hey, boy, throw what's in your hand. 35. That is to say, when Pete Parker happily thought about going out on a mission to fight criminals at night, a middle-aged man stood in front of him. Pete Parker looked around. It was an inaccessible alley, and there were hardly any other people in sight. It seemed that he had encountered a robbery. If it was before, Pete Parker would have been shivering with fear, and then obediently handed things over to each other. But it's different now. You are trying to rob? Pete Parker asked uncertainly. Definitely. Don't talk nonsense. Throw things over quickly, otherwise I'll be welcome. There's online man said fiercely. Oh. All right then. Pete Parker nodded, making sure his face was not found. He turned quickly, and opened the package. What do you want to do? Put down the bag for me, and I'll shoot if you don't put it down. When the middle-aged man saw him turn around and open the bag, he immediately became nervous. Who knows if the other party will come up with a big guy. However, just when he wanted to shoot, he saw that the other party actually took out a set of red spider tights and quickly put it on. This scene made him stunned, but as long as it wasn't a weapon, it would be fine. Although the city has now become a mutant city, the threat of firearms is still very large. Ordinary super ability can't stop Li Qianzhao, the power of thermal weapons at all. So after seeing that the other party was not holding a gun, the middle-aged man was obviously relieved. Boy, Hurry up and throw the bag over here. Can you hear me? Don't you want to taste the power of bullets? However, at this moment, Pete Parker had already put on the spider suit. I can give you something, Pete Parker said, and threw the empty cloth bag directly. The middle-aged man was very angry when he looked at the empty cloth bag. Boy, are you kidding me? Before he could finish speaking, even Spider-Man kicked him with a flying leg. However, what surprised Pete Parker was that his flying leg was actually caught by a middle-aged man. Chapter 219 Emergence of Extremis. Boy, you're still young. The middle-aged man sneered, then grabbed Spider-Man and smashed it to the ground. It turns out that this middle-aged man is not simple. He has awakened the super ability that makes his body stronger, and its power is simply not comparable to ordinary people. Even Spider-Man was caught off guard. However, this blow is nothing to Spider-Man. I saw him quickly catapult the sky, and then shoot the cobweb with his left and right hands. Using the principle of a slingshot, Spider-Man literally shoots down from the sky. The legs with strong power kicked the middle-aged man more than 10 meters away in an instant, and then stopped when he hit the wall. How is it, big man? It's cool, Pete Parker said with a smug smile. Boy, I underestimated you, but it's still a long way from defeating me. The middle-aged man pushed away the gravel on his body, wiped the blood from the corner of his mouth, and rushed over again. Then let's try it. Pete Parker rushed over again when he saw this. The strength of middle-aged men is indeed very great, but compared with Pete Parker, they are too inflexible. Pete Parker shot the cobweb into the sky, and the middle-aged man couldn't do anything at all. In just a moment, the middle-aged man was bound by cobweb. Hey, do you think I should take you to the police station? Pete Parker smiled proudly, pulling the bundled cobweb. Hey, little Spider-Man, are you getting too carried away? Just when he was a little proud, several figures suddenly appeared behind him. Pete Parker was startled by the sudden sound and turned around quickly. It's you. Pete Parker definitely knew the man in front of him. Without the other party, he would not be able to enter the X-Power Academy, let alone fully awaken his super ability. In fact, he always wanted to thank the man who let him enroll, but unfortunately he never had the chance, and he didn't even know who the other party was. Now seeing this man again, Pete Parker is so excited that he can't help himself. Hey, little Parker, I didn't expect to meet you here. Levi smiled and made a move. Raw. Little Parker? Haven't heard of this name? Lauren asked with some doubts. Is it the genius of that class? But I don't seem to have heard of it. Clarice shrugged. I remembered, when I was at the registration office one day. Little Naughty finally remembered where she had heard this name. After all, she came to school with Levi's last time. However, Pete Parker at the moment was stunned. He didn't expect to be recognized even though he was wearing a holster. Don't be so excited. My name is Levi's, and they're Clarice. Levi's briefly introduced it. I want to know how Brother Vice did you know me? Pete Parker asked excitedly. Well, I said I have perspective. Do you believe it? Levi's joked. This. Pete Parker was a little dumbfounded. Haha Tilda, I won't make fun of you. It's not a secret that you are disguised as Spider-Man, so I know it easily. Levi's made a random excuse. So that's how it is. Pete Parker suddenly realized, obviously this explanation, is more reliable. Levi's was a little helpless about this. He didn't expect that he didn't believe the truth, but instead believed the lie. Okay, let's deal with this guy first. Brother Vice, this person did it first. He wanted to rob me. Pete Parker explained quickly, afraid of being misunderstood. Don't worry, we know. Levi's smiled and let Misaka deal with the criminal's problem, then left the alley with Pete Parker. By the way, speaking of Parker, how did you completely awaken your super ability? He is still very curious about this question. After all, it has only been a month since the last time Pete Parker entered the school. I don't know what happened, it's just that I attended the biological exhibition hall last time and was bitten by a spider, and then woke up the next day and it was like this. Pete Parker honestly explained what happened. I see. Levi's nodded. Although Peter Parker is only 15 years old now, he still cannot escape the fate of being bitten by a spider. And he, like the original, became Spider-Man. I seem to have heard of this biological exhibition hall. Lauren on the side frowned and thought, oh? Is there something wrong with this biological exhibition hall? Levi's was curious. Yes, it is said that it is a small-scale biological research institute, and they have been studying the technology of biological genetics since before the New York War. Lauren thought, really? A biological research institute? It's not all that worthwhile. Levi's shook his head indifferently. Lauren helplessly explained, listen to me first. This biological research institute is said to be studying something unusual, so it was approached by the X-Men some time ago, but the other side escaped. Oh? Is that so? Levi's became interested. Misaka, you should have heard what we said just now. Help me find information about the biological institute. Good master, Misaka replied. Soon Misaka found the relevant information. I saw Misaka projecting several photos in front of his eyes, all of which are red with an abnormal skin color, and there will be explosions. Chapter 220 Iron Man 3, Spider-Man vs. Extremis. Ad. Extremis? Levi's looked at these materials with some surprise. Isn't this the Extremis in Iron Man 3? And the people who developed Extremis, as expected, are Tony Stark's old botanists Maya Hansen and Dr. Killian. Wait, I like to see such a power user. When Peter Parker saw the photos of these people, if he remembered his previous mission, it was when they were performing A-level missions before. Their super abilities were all the same. They could create high temperatures, and they had a powerful recovery ability, but when they were fighting, these people blew themselves up inexplicably. 99. Speaking of this, Peter Parker was a little palpitated. After all, the last self-destruction was very powerful, and the high temperature released in an instant was tens of thousands of degrees, which was really scary. Fortunately, he has a spider warning, otherwise he may have to explain it. It looks like this group of ordinary people must have some conspiracy, the little naughty thought while rubbing his chin. Yes, these people are indeed ordinary people. It's true that New York has become a city of mutants, but the last time the X-Gene Awakening potion was used in New York, there were still many people who locked themselves at home. Therefore, many people did not absorb the X-Gene Awakening medicine. There are still about 20% of ordinary people in New York today. And after the New York War, all the X-Gene Awakening potions produced were sold, so the 20% of ordinary people did not deal with them in time. After more than half a year of changes, the whole of New York has already reversed from the previous discrimination against mutants, and now almost everyone has super ability. Ordinary people are being discriminated against. So it is understandable that some people want to use Extremis to get super ability. Let me see, they have a deal in Brooklyn. Someone wants to buy Extremis. We can go and see, Levi said as he checked the documents. Everyone heard no comments, and then a group of people rushed to the trading location. Well, it looks like we came a little early. The transaction has not yet started, and neither side has come. Levi's can only bring everyone to a coffee shop not far away. Peter Parker kept his head down, wondering what he was thinking. Parker, do you have any questions? Levi's laughed after taking a sip of coffee. I really can't figure it out. This Extremis will make people explode. It looks extremely unstable, but people still pay for it. Peter Parker said with a puzzled face. Hearing this, Levi's explained, this is normal. After all, in today's city of power users, ordinary people who do not have super ability will try their best to get super ability, even if they pay for it, and those buyers are not necessarily aware of Extremis flaws. 5. So that's how it is. Peter Parker nodded thoughtfully. Look, the trader is here. At this time Clarice reminded everyone. Everyone looked, and saw a man in a suit pulling a suitcase and looking anxiously to the trading place. Is that the person? The little naughty looked eager to try. Peter Parker was faster than her, however, and after spending a few seconds in a spider suit in a deserted corner, he rushed out first. Hey, this thing in your hand is very dangerous. Can you leave it to me for safekeeping? Peter Parker came to the man in the suit with a few jumps. The man in the suit turned his head to look, but unexpectedly, a white cobweb shot over, and the suitcase in his hand was instantly snatched away. Damn, give it back to me. Seeking flowers. When the man in the suit saw the suitcase being taken away, his face flushed with anger, and he rushed over. Sorry, your stuff has been confiscated and needs to be handed over to the X-Men to make sure there's no danger before it can be returned to you, so you'd better catch it now. 35. Peter Parker said that a mass of cobwebs shot directly out. The man in the suit was caught off guard and was directly bound by the spider web. Brother Vice, I brought something here. Ignoring the man in the suit, Peter Parker happily turned around and walked over with the suitcase. Yet at this time, I saw that the man in the suit bound by the cobweb actually turned crimson all over, like magma. The spider web was instantly melted by the high temperature. Seeing this, Levi's raised his eyebrows and said, no one in Parker ever told you, don't give your back to the enemy? What? Peter Parker was a little puzzled when he heard this. He looked back subconsciously and saw that the fist of the man in the suit was less than 1 meter away from him. He hurriedly turned sideways and then managed to dodge the punch, and then the cobweb shot out of his hand, instantly restraining the man in the suit. This time, he didn't dare to be careless anymore, used cobweb to fly into the sky, and then kicked his legs towards the man in the suit. Boom. Unsurprisingly, the man in the suit was kicked out instantly. At this moment, another man in a suit came out on the other side, holding a pistol in his hand and facing Levi's. You geese should be together, let me go. Levi's was a bit dumbfounded, making him think about who was the last guy with a gun on him. Well, it looks like it was Chitauri. And as a result, the Chitauri were all wiped out. Mountain. Chapter 221. The Power of Extremis. You're this guy's trader. If I think you're just a buyer, I won't hold you accountable. Leave now, Levi said and waved his hand like a fly. However, this attitude made the man in a suit wearing glasses a little angry. I was forced to do this. It was because of you freaks that I was treated unfairly. Why do you all have powerful super abilities? The man in glasses shouted angrily. Before the Great War in New York, The man with glasses was originally an elite on Wall Street and had a good family. Although he had always been very discriminatory against mutants, his family members were also safe and sound. However, after the Great War in New York, all the good families disappeared. The family broke down and the property damage left him with nothing in an instant. Even God made a joke with him. He actually became the person who failed to awaken. Because the awakening failed, he suffered too many scorns and teasing in the following time, and Extremis was his hope for a successful comeback, so he would never give up. Also at the moment, as the man with glasses got excited, his body turned red as well, and it was obvious that this man had also been injected with Extremis. According to Levi's, after injecting Extremis, it does not mean that it is done once and for all, and it is necessary to inject an inhibitor all the time. Otherwise, it will explode. In other words, injecting Extremis is equivalent to installing a time bomb on yourself that may detonate at any time. Seeing the man with glasses rushing over, Levi's waved with one hand, and the next moment the man with glasses stood still and calmed down. Take it back and let Dr. Ethan and the others study it. Maybe they can find the antidote for Extremis. Well, leave this to me. Clarice took the initiative to stand out and opened a portal, and then the man with glasses left. On the other hand, Peter Parker also managed to beat another man in a suit. However, at this moment, the defeated man in the suit suddenly released an astonishing amount of heat from his entire body. Damn, he's going to blow himself up. Peter Parker yelled, turning and running. Boom. Accompanied by a loud bang, the flames of the explosion directly enveloped the surrounding area for more than 10 meters. After the flames of the explosion dissipated, a large pit appeared in place, and the man in the suit had already been blown to pieces. Are you all right? Seeing Peter Parker staggering over, Levi's asked with concern. It's all right. Peter Parker shook his head, dazed by the aftermath of the explosion. That's good. Let someone deal with this place. Let's go back first. Fortunately, there were not many people around, and they all stayed away from here after the battle started, so there were no casualties. After letting others deal with these matters, Levi's and Lauren returned to the institute, and Peter Parker went back to rest. How about Dr. Zn? Has the research come up with anything? Well, I have already taken it. Dr. Zn nodded and said, after studying the person who was injected with Extremis, we have initially reached some conclusions. This person who has been injected with Extremis can indeed be considered to have awakened super ability, but because Extremis has eroded the X gene in his body, everyone who has injected Extremis has almost the same ability. Dr. Zn said and took out a red test tube. This Extremis can erode the X gene and DNA of the human body, so as long as the virus is encoded, the DNA of life can be modified arbitrarily. 95. Oh? Levi's rubbed his chin and thought for a while. That is, as long as the coding is correct, one can awaken any type of super ability. The previous coding was to give the user the fire and healing ability. If you modify the code, you can get different super abilities. Although it has shortcomings, if these shortcomings can be corrected, then wouldn't it be possible to create an army of the same ability? For example, an army composed entirely of psychokinesis, or an army composed entirely of electromagnetic forces. In this way, the qualitative change can be caused by the number of people. If a super ability army can be created, it may be invincible even in the entire universe. Doctors nodded after hearing the words. According to 4.1, it is possible to do what you said, but it is very difficult to actually implement, and the defects of this Extremis are also very large. That's it. Then you can figure it out. If you can study it, study it. If it doesn't work, you can only give up. Levi's is not very interested in creating a super ability army, and it doesn't matter if he can succeed or not. Leave the lab. He suddenly remembered that it seemed that the Extremis incident this time had something to do with Tony Stark, and it didn't seem to have much contact during this time. Maybe it's time to take a look. Chapter 222 Iron Man with Anxiety. Luxurious seaside villa. At the moment Tony was hammering in the base. Since the last New York War, Tony has been shutting himself in the basement, constantly improving and making armor, until the current Mark series has been updated to Mark 42. You should know that the last time it participated in the New York War, it was only the Mark 13 that was used. This shows how crazy Tony has been during this time. Because after the New York War in the workplace, Tony suffers from severe mental anxiety. As long as he hears keywords such as New York or aliens, he will be subconsciously fearful. Only the steel armor can give him some sense of security. Okay, the Mark 42 can finally start testing. JARVIS, let's start the program. 35. Tony said and came to the test bench, looking at the steel armor in front of him. He took a deep breath, and then clicked his fingers. JARVIS, drop by for some music. Okay, sir. Tony's body couldn't help but sway along with the loud music. Bring it on. Tony stretched out his hand and waved at the steel armor parts placed aside, and the next moment, the parts flew over one by one. According to the miniature induction device in his hand, all the parts flew to him and automatically dressed. Tony is getting more and more excited to see this. Looks good. Head next. 35. Tony looked at the upside-down mask, suddenly did a backflip, put the mask on accurately, and at the same time knelt down on one knee and punched the ground. Shows a standard hero landing method. However, at this moment, he didn't find a piece flying behind him. This part was obviously out of alignment, and it smashed Tony and flew out, and all the parts of the whole body were scattered on the ground. PSST, ha 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 tilde. Levi's, who had just used the space to move to the villa, couldn't help laughing when he saw this funny scene. Why do I feel that as long as you show up, nothing good will happen to me? Tony groaned a little while lying on the ground in a pose he thought was cooler. Really? It's normal. After all, Tony, I'm there every time you're in danger, and I've saved you many times so far. Levi's sat aside unconcernedly. Hey. Jarvis, help me with that glass of red wine. Thank you. Tony thought thoughtfully when he heard this. You mean I'm in danger? Just kidding. I haven't been anywhere in a while. Jarvis grabs me a drink by the way. Good sir. Levi's picked up a glass of red wine that was handed over to Tony and clinked the glasses, and then laughed. Our playboy is actually an otaku at home, am I right? Tony shrugged helplessly. I thought you knew. What do I know? Levi's froze for a moment, then remembered something about Tony's time period. I think you have a very serious anxiety disorder. For the New York War? Tony nodded when he heard the words. To be honest, I think you may have super abilities like telepathy. You're right, because of the New York War. I'm always nervous, whenever someone mentions New York or Chitauri aliens or something, and I'm going to be terrified inside of me. Speaking of which, Tony couldn't help but sigh. Levi's heard the words and looked like that. I don't think you need to worry so much. After all, the aliens are calling and I'm still here, and New York is not so weak today. 35. Today's New York has become a city of mutants. According to the data collected by Misaka, there are about 3.5 million mutants, of which there are hundreds of fourth-level mutants, and there are more third-level mutants. This is a terrifying force. If there were so many mutants in New York when the Chitauri army came, even without Levi's and the XMan, the mutants in New York could easily wipe out the Chitauri army. I know, but 587. Tony paused as he said, in fact, even he himself didn't understand why he was so sensitive, why he was afraid of the Chitauri army coming again. Levi's shook his head and said, I think you're afraid of losing the name Iron Man. As New York City becomes a mutant city, and all mutants are getting stronger, they don't need yours at all. Help. So you're afraid people don't need Iron Man anymore. These words completely came into Tony's heart, and it was precisely because of the fear of losing the name Iron Man that all Tony would study day and night for stronger armor. Fear of another Chitauri army is just an excuse. Tony, whose mind was revealed, drank silently, not knowing what he was thinking. Seeing this, Levi smiled and said, actually, you don't have to worry at all. The strength of mutants is limited after all, but your potential is unlimited. 5. You must know that Tony in the later stage can use steel armor and Thanos to make a few moves, which ordinary mutants can't do. Chapter 223 Tony. Do you have today too? Okay, you suddenly came to my villa? Probably not to relieve me. Tony's mood was obviously much better after a glass of wine was directly drained. Well, there is one thing, Extremis, that you should have heard of. 35 Levi's laughed. The latest epidemic virus? This seems to have nothing to do with me. No, it definitely has something to do with you. Look at this, Levi said, handing him a document. Tony took the document and looked at it. This paper looks very interesting. If it is successful, it can reborn people's broken limbs and restore various injuries. I have to say that the person who published this paper is a genius. The genius who posted this? Shouldn't you? Tony looked at him suspiciously. Levi's couldn't help rolling his eyes when he heard this. Isn't there the name of the publisher on it? Definitely. I guessed it wasn't you. Luo. A little embarrassed, Tony looked back at the file, and sure enough, on the publisher, he found a more familiar name. Maya? Tony thought for a while. This woman's name is familiar. By the way, it seems that we had a friendly exchange in bed. You'll be fine. I predict they'll come to trouble you. Trouble me? We just had a shot. Won't we be bothering me after all these years? Tony said in disbelief. Levi's was speechless when he heard the words. You think too much. This Extremis developer has another person named Aldridge Killian. Think about what you did to that person. Hearing this, Tony frowned and thought, oh, I asked him to wait for me on the rooftop, and then I discussed it with Maya for a night. Could it be this? I think there might be a reason for the rivalry. Extremis was researched by Maya and Killian together, and it would be impossible to say that the two were not in a relationship. Killian was waiting on the rooftop all night, while Tony was messing with his girlfriend. It's impossible for anyone not to hold grudges. After thinking about it, Levi's felt that the truth of the matter should be like this. So it's this Killian who wants to trouble me? Tony asked suspiciously. Definitely not. Levi's shook his head. The people behind Killian may be the notorious Mandarin, the Ten Rings gang. I think you should know them. 35. The people who kidnapped Tony in the cave were from the Ten Rings gang, and the leader of the Ten Rings gang was Mandarin. Tony frowned. I know that Mandarin is behind the Ten Rings gang. I also had the idea of killing this organization at the beginning, but this organization is too large, and no one knows where Mandarin is, and Roddy also warned me not to dig deep into it. Having said that, Tony didn't say any more. Obviously, this matter of Mandarin has touched the interests of the ugly country's military. No matter what, he is a citizen of Y State, and it is impossible for him to have other ideas on matters involving national interests. So you didn't listen to my words. Well, it's your own business anyway. If something goes wrong with Little Pepper, don't ask me to revive her. Levi's shrugged nonchalantly. He's just here to warn Tony. Don't listen. However, what he said was to bluff Tony. In addition to the steel armor, Tony must be most concerned about the Little Pepper. Can you tell me what happened to Pepper? Tony was a little excited. It's not happening now. Levi's waved his hand. However, at this moment, Tony's phone rang, and he didn't expect it was Pepper's phone. He answered the phone hastily. Hey, Pepper, are you alright? 55. Little Pepper, who was just about to say something, was stunned for a moment, and then said, I'm fine. It was Happy who was injured by a terrorist attack, and is now in the hospital. What? You wait for me to arrive in a minute. Tony was relieved when he heard that Chili Pepper was injured, and then he was a little anxious. After all, Happy was his royal driver for many years, so he could be called a family member. Sorry, I have to go to the hospital now. Tony said anxiously and walked towards the steel armor. Alright then. Levi's drank red wine indifferently. A moment later, in the hospital, Tony, Happy, Pepper threw himself into Tony's arms with a sad face. During this period of time, because Tony often stayed at home, Happy was always in charge of being the driver of Little Pepper, and the relationship between the two was also wonderful. Li Qianzhou. At the moment, on the hospital bed in the room, Happy was wearing an oxygen mask and looked unconscious. How could something like this happen? At the moment, Tony's eyes are red. After all, Happy has been his bodyguard and driver for 20 years, and the two have a very deep relationship. Levi's, who was standing behind them, could not help but pouted, and he suddenly sounded the plot in the comics. In the comics, Pepper and Happy are husband and wife, and Tony is the third party. And now Tony stays at home every day, letting Happy and Pepper get along. I don't know if there will be any bloody plot. Maybe his friend should have reminded Tony. Levi's was full of malicious thoughts. Chapter 224 Mandarin's Threat. Tony almost got scared to pee. At this moment, the TV in the ward suddenly turned into a snowflake with no signal, and at the same time, an old voice came from the TV. You'll never know who I am, and you'll never know who will be hurt next. Ha ha ha. Tilda struggling with the pain. 35. Hearing this voice, Tony's palm cannon in anger destroyed the TV. Who is it? At the moment, Tony just wanted to catch the man who threatened him and kill him, but he felt powerless. After all, he didn't even know who he was. I thought you should know who it was. Levi's shrugged. Hearing his words, Tony suddenly thought of a name. You mean Mandarin? That's right. Levi's nodded. That bastard. An angry Tony turned around and left the hospital. At the same time, a large number of reporters have gathered at the entrance of the hospital. After all, this terrorist attack is another attack by Mandarin against Stark Industries. The 587 incident when they were caught in the cave last time has not been forgotten by this group of reporters. They all wanted to know what Tony thought about it. After seeing him come out, all the reporters immediately surrounded him. Mr. Stark, the source told us that this is another attack by Mandarin. What do you think? May I ask why Mr. Stark did not retaliate against Mandarin? When will Mr. Stark finish this bastard? Hearing the reporters' inquiries, Tony didn't intend to pay attention, but after hearing one of the questions, he turned around angrily and said angrily, do you want to know? I have a greeting for Mandarin. My name is Tony Stark. I'm not afraid of you. You're like a coward. Just wait and die. Tony took off his glasses and then gave his address. You cowards who only know how to hide in the dark. So, now my address is here. This has nothing to do with anything else. It's just personal revenge. Come to me if you have any. 5. Tony put down the harsh words, then turned and drove away. The reporters behind them were stunned for a moment before they realized that Tony Stark had actually declared war on Mandarin, which was destined to detonate the whole of New York. In the Mutant Academy, Levi's is watching the news with his arms around Lorna. Seeing that Tony still chose to directly declare war on the Ten Rings gang as in the original book, he was also a little helpless. It seemed that Tony was destined to suffer this time. Okay Lorna baby, we won't watch it. I have more fun things to do. Levi's didn't pay too much attention to this matter, so he took Lorna into the room and started a friendly exchange between the two. The next evening, at Seaside Villa. At the moment Tony was sitting on the sofa fully armed, waiting for the enemy to attack. Yesterday, he challenged the Tenji gang directly in a fit of anger. He didn't regret it, but he was a little worried about Little Pepper's safety. But later, he will send the Little Pepper away and face all this alone. Just as Pepper was packing up, news came from Jarvis that someone came from outside the door. Why would anyone still be here? Didn't I say to be on high alert? Don't you know I just threatened a terrorist? Seeing that the visitor had entered the villa, Tony could not help frowning. Sir, there's nothing I can do about it. Who told you to tell others about it? Jarvis also learned to refute. But in fact, Jarvis only put people in because he knew that the other party was not a threat. Seeing that the person who came was a beautiful woman, Tony stopped complaining immediately. Stand there and don't move. Tony, who was wearing a steel armor, raised his palm cannon at the beautiful woman in front of him. You shouldn't be Mandarin, am I right? 99. The black-haired beauty smiled helplessly when she heard this. It seems that you don't remember. I'm not surprised at all. It's not your fault, to be honest. I don't even remember what I ate for breakfast. As an old lover, lying is a commonplace thing for Tony. I want to say a few words to you alone. It's a more important thing. So, the black-haired beauty gestured, meaning it was inconvenient to speak here. Tony shrugged. Rightly speaking, I wouldn't say no. But now I have an official girlfriend, so you know. Before I could finish speaking, I saw a few packages dropped from the second floor. Pepper, who was apparently packing up, found out that there was a beautiful woman looking for Tony. Tony, are there any guests looking for you? Yes, it's Maya Hansen, a botanist friend who I met before, but I'm not very familiar with. Tony explained quickly. When Maya heard him call her name, she couldn't help but smile. Seeing Pepper going downstairs, Tony came to Maya and whispered. The police told me that there is a 12-year-old kid I haven't met waiting for me in the car. 5. It's 13 years old. Maya said solemnly. Don't scare me. If you want to ask me for help, just say so. Tony is really scared. After all, there are too many women who have slept in so many years. Who knows if there are any children outside? Although he has taken protective measures every time, it is inevitable that accidents will happen. Chapter 225. The Ten Rings Gang attacks. The confused Tony. Seeing Tony so scared, Maya smiled happily. Okay, let's get down to business. In fact, I really want to ask you for help. Help what? Now? Hearing her words, Tony was finally relieved, but he was also a little puzzled. What is this old friend coming to look for him now? I really wanted to ask you for help now, but after watching TV, I think you might not be able to last for a week. Maya shrugged. Oh, really? Hearing this, Tony was a little dissatisfied. At this time, Pepper came down from the upstairs, and Tony immediately distanced himself from Maya. Sorry, Happy is hospitalized, but I didn't expect there to be guests. Little Pepper smiled apologetically. Not a guest, Tony corrected. That's the lover. Not bad. Little Pepper teased. Tony shook his head quickly, trying to explain but was interrupted by Maya's words. No, it's a one-night stand at most. Yes, Maya said the truth after all, and Tony had to admit it. Is it one of your romantic debts? 35. Pepper is not surprised by this. After all, no one knows Tony's style of life better than her. You know what? Good thing you didn't jump into the fire pit. Little Pepper said seriously to Maya with the appearance of someone who had come over. This is what she said from the bottom of her heart, and now she regrets being Tony's official girlfriend. Tony only felt that his charm was seriously insulted when he heard this. Just as he was about to explain something, Maya suddenly saw a few more planes appearing on the monitor on the side, and at the same time a flaming object flew towards the villa rapidly. Hey, Tony, I want to ask if this is surveillance or video? Maya asked curiously, pointing to the big screen. Tony, who was arguing with Pepper about his charm, turned his head and looked confused. The next moment, a cannonball flew in directly. Boom. The explosion was too sudden, and all three people present were blown away by the aftermath of the explosion. Fortunately, Tony made the steel armor automatically wear on Little Pepper in time, so that Little Pepper was not injured. But his own state was very bad, and this fall directly made his eyes glow with gold stars. Before he could wake up, a large stone fell from the ceiling. Just when Tony was about to play GG by himself, it was fortunate that Little Pepper blocked him. Quick, we have to get out of here. 99. Tony at the moment also lost his previous arrogance, facing the enemy's sudden heavy fire attack. He was caught off guard and had no ability to counterattack at all. Definitely, the most important thing is the little chili here. The first task now is to protect the Little Pepper from leaving. However, it backfired. With a continuous bombardment of shells, the collapse of the entire seaside villa. Tony accidentally fell into the second basement. Pepper was wearing a steel armor and wanted to rescue Tony, but at this time, several gunships not far away had begun to fire with machine guns. Wow, the steel armor is very hard, but the huge force is not uncomfortable. And now the steel armor is the main target of the enemy's attack. Once the Pepper gets close, I am afraid that Tony will also become the target of the attack. Helpless, Tony can only let Pepper take Maya to a safe place first. Although Pepper wanted to save Tony, her reason told her that it was the right decision to come first. Ask for flowers. However, when Little Pepper rescued Maya, the entire villa collapsed completely, and the steel armor on her body also flew out. Although this proves that Tony is not dead, the situation is not optimistic. The anxious Little Pepper suddenly remembered something, and immediately she took out the phone and dialed. At the same time, Levi's, who was inspecting the Sky Warship base, Received the call. Little Pepper, did the Ten Rings gang attack Tony's villa? How do you know? Point 0. Little Pepper was a little surprised. She didn't even have time to say it. She didn't expect Levi's to already know. Vice, this is not the time to say this. Tony is in danger now. More than a dozen helicopters have come, and the villa has collapsed. Hearing Pepper's anxious voice, Levi's didn't talk nonsense. I'll come right away. After he finished speaking, he spoke to Marv and Phoebe beside him and disappeared into the research institute. When he appeared again, it was already at the seaside villa. So many people came? As soon as he came here, Levi's was surprised by the battle in front of him. After all, only a few helicopters attacked Tony's villa in the original book. Now this number has at least more than doubled, and it seems that the plot has changed a lot. The Ten Rings gang really did a lot to kill Tony. Here you are, save Tony, he's pinned down. 5. After seeing him coming, Little Pepper ran over anxiously. However, her actions also attracted the attention of the Ten Rings gang on the plane, and a few cannonballs shot over immediately. If you like this audiobook, subscribe the channel for more videos like this. And join my Patreon if you want to support me, link is in the description. Leave some comment and let me know if you guys like this story, or you have a web novel you like and want to hear its audiobook. I will be happy to create them for you. Please like, share, and leave a comment on the video.